Chapter 45-42. At this point, this old man's trip to the Xingyue Palace is complete. As he spoke, a trace of regret appeared on the Grand Mist ancestor's face. However, there was also pride in his regret. He thought to himself, however, most things in the world can't go as one wishes. Due to my lack of strength, I still couldn't refine the yin-yang illustration to the extreme. It was difficult for me to reach the yin-yang stage. Otherwise, the yin-yang illustration wouldn't just be the heaven-earth profound realm, but the yin-yang primordial realm. If that was the case, this old man would be able to control fate and reverse yin and yang. I would be able to condense an immortal spiritual body and ascend. As he spoke, the Grand Mist ancestor opened his mouth and spat out a ray of clear light. Within the clear light, a palm-sized flag appeared. The flag was multicolored and its design was very strange. What was special about it was that there were many strange beasts embroidered on it. The flag flashed in the clear light and the beasts flew out again. They turned into powerful shadows and circled around the Grand Mist ancestor. Everyone knows that this old man has the yin-yang illustration. Who knows that this old man has the 100 Beasts flag? After this old man successfully refines these treasures, I will have the help of several hundred monster beasts with cultivation similar to this old man's. Let alone the human race, even the great sacred hall will not be my match. With these two treasures, who in the 3 continents will be my match? Who can compare with my good fortune? The Grand Mist ancestor laughed loudly and didn't retract his 1,000 feet Xiantian Dao physique. Instead, he formed seals with both hands and started to cultivate. Endless amounts of star energy and heaven-earth yuan qi rushed into his body. Foundation establishment, enlightening, fusion, heartbeat, solitary spirit, golden core, nascent soul, astral projection, spirit severing, and other realms appeared on the Grand Mist ancestor's Dao physique like blooming flowers. The pressure shook the entire space as it gradually approached the fusion, tribulation transcendence, and Mahayana realm. Xiao Huan naturally didn't know that the Grand Mist ancestor was in the Star Palace next to him. The Grand Mist ancestor had already condensed his body and his strength was approaching Xiao Hua's. In the future, Xiao Hua would have to face an opponent who was not only strong but also full of schemes. He only stood in the other Star Palace in a daze. The Star Palace Xiao Hua had entered was different from the space Grand Mist ancestor had entered. Xiao Hua was facing an enormous mountain peak. This mountain peak had many protrusions from top to bottom, and it looked as if there were thorns growing on the mountain peak. Moreover, there was an extremely dense heaven-earth yuan qi in this space, and even a trace of thin immortal qi. Looking at the peak of the mountain, there was also a small platform with a black box on it. The box was about 4 feet long and looked very ordinary. There were no runes on its surface, nor were there any fluctuations. It was similar to the fist-sized box that Xiao Hua had obtained in the heavenly prison. Xiao Hua was currently standing in front of the box with a dazed look on his face. He had never imagined that he would encounter such a strange box the moment he entered a star palace. Xiao Hua waved his hand, and the box fell into his hand. He examined it from top to bottom, and sure enough, he didn't discover anything. He then tried to send his consciousness into the space, and sure enough, he was able to connect with the space inside the star palace. He took out the fist-sized box and compared it with the space. Once again, he put the 2 boxes into his space. The Jade Archive Xiao Hua also couldn't see through this box. This black box is too strange. Xiao Hua put away the 2 boxes and pondered inwardly. It appeared twice, and both times were related to time laws. Could it be that this box contains a fragment of time? It's a pity that this Xiao doesn't know how to open this box. Right? Isn't there still Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu? When I see them later, I'll let them take a look. While Xiao Hua was thinking, he saw moonlight falling from the sky, and starlight surged out from the ground. The entire space was filled with moonlight. Good. Seeing this, Xiao Hua's heart skipped a beat. He clapped his hands and laughed. Isn't this my Fortune Gate's disciples' opportunity? Although this Star Moon Palace has time laws, there shouldn't be space fragments like the heavenly prison. Fortune Gate's disciples can't be as clever as this Xiao. Now that this space has moonlight, isn't this the perfect opportunity to temper their bodies? With this foundation, their future cultivation will be twice the result with half the effort, several times faster than ordinary cultivators. Moreover, this space's origin energy is abnormally abundant, and there's even a trace of immortal qi. Perhaps this will give them a better opportunity. While pondering, Xiaohua's consciousness entered the Shenhua continent and turned into the Jade Archive Xiaohua. He raised a finger, and this finger turned into thousands of fragments, landing on Xiong Yi, Zhai Xingzi, and the others' foreheads. The secret technique of absorbing moonlight to temper their bodies was already imprinted in their minds. Subsequently, Xiaohua invited all the Fortune Gate's disciples, Zhai Xingzi, and the others out from the Shenhua continent. With a wave of his sleeve, everyone occupied a protrusion on the mountain peak. Xiaohua himself sat on the mountain peak, facing the sky with his palms facing the sky as he explained the secret technique's profundity word by word. As he explained, the various cultivators began to absorb the moonlight into their bodies. When he finished, Xiaohua stood up and swept his divine sense across the space. There was nothing wrong. Xiaohua smiled faintly. Looking at the moonlight that was still pouring into the space, his figure flickered, and he soared into the sky. A moment later, Xiaohua's vision blurred, and he appeared outside the Star-Moon Palace. So, that's how it is. Xiaohua's gaze landed on the Grand Mist Ancestors' Star Palace, and he immediately understood what was going on. Someone must have obtained a fortuitous encounter here, and that's why the other Star Palaces are benefiting. But I wonder who that person is? Could it be? With this thought, Xiaohua's figure was about to enter the Star Palace. Unfortunately, before Xiaohua could land, a repulsive force appeared above the Star Palace, blocking Xiaohua's path. Could it be that if there's someone inside the Star Palace, other people can't enter? Xiaohua was a little confused. He looked at the nearby Star Palaces and randomly picked one to land. As expected, the space he landed in was empty, and there were no other cultivators or greater demons. When Xiaohua looked at the Star Palace again, he couldn't help but smile. With a wave of his hand, he brought Ao Xing Ao Zhan and the others out from the space. Stacked Jadeite Legacy Realm? The moment Ao Xing landed in the space, he was overjoyed. He shook his head and wagged his tail as he exclaimed. Xiaohua laughed. He pointed at the waves below his feet and asked, "Is there seawater in your stacked Jadeite Legacy Realm?" I don't care." Ao Xing looked at the rich power of the stars and moon, as well as the faint dragon qi. He immediately activated the Dragon Island's secret technique, and his entire dragon body was covered in dragon marks. "Thank you, Senior." Ao Zhan and the others did not dare to delay and hurriedly began to cultivate. Xiaohua waited for a moment, and when he saw that they did not occupy much space, he summoned some of Jiang Hong's descendants from the Shenhua continent and instructed them to cultivate here. Then, Xiaohua flew out again and landed in the nearby star palaces. Except for one star palace that could not be entered, the other 4 star palaces were empty. These 4 star palaces were either a snowy land, a grassland, a demon territory, or a starry sky. Apart from the unusually rich power of the stars and moon, they also had their own unique characteristics. There were even places where the qi of righteousness was strange. Therefore, Xiaohua released Xiaohuang, Xiaohe, Gongshu, Yisun, Mo Jianli, and the others from Shenhua continent. With them here, other cultivators could not enter. After the Star Moon Palace closed, they would be safely evacuated by the Star Moon Palace. There would be no threat to their lives. The only thing that Xiaohua was worried about was that the Star Moon Palace would push these disciples to various places in the 3 continents. No one knew what dangers they would encounter in the 3 continents. However, this was no longer something that Xiaohua could control. These disciples could not cultivate under his wings for the rest of their lives. Phew! When he came out of the last star palace, Xiaohua let out a long sigh. He thought with a smile, "Fortunately, I have completed one of the 2 missions in the Star Moon Palace. Now, there is only the matter of Su Ji and Fairy Xingyue left." Thinking of this, Xiaohua took out the astrolabe out of habit. A thunderbolt landed on the astrolabe. Xiaohua didn't have much hope at first, because he had already tried before. However, what surprised him was that where the lightning landed, the astrolabe flickered and actually disappeared into thin air, turning into an arrow and a dot of light that landed on his right hand. Oh! Xiaohua looked at the light spot, then at the arrow, and then at the star palace. He nodded thoughtfully. It seems that the astrolabe can only be activated because this star palace has attracted the power of the stars and moon to break the restriction this time. This light spot should be where Su Ji and Fairy Xingyue are. This arrow is flying in the direction of Su Ji and Fairy Xingyue. Then, Xiaohua did not dare to delay. He urged his body to fly in the direction of the arrow. Contrary to Xiaohua's expectations, the arrow was not pointing in the direction that Xiaohua had come from. Instead, it was pointing in the depths of the floating wave mountain range. Xiaohua flew for a full hour. Not only did the reef-like star palace disappear, but the wave-like mountain peak also disappeared. A plane appeared in front of Xiaohua. Xiaohua stood at the edge of the mountain peak, hesitating. This plane did not look very big. It was like a public square. The public square was filled with indescribable light and shadows. These light and shadows looked like palaces, mountains, and even strange beasts. However, when Xiaohua's gaze landed on the dusky plain, he discovered something strange about it. This was because the plain was almost boundless. His gaze seemed to fall into a pitch-black deathly stillness, and he could not see the end. Moreover, a hair-raising feeling involuntarily arose in Xiaohua's heart. Xiaohua looked at his right hand. The light spot on it was a little weak, but the arrow was not wrong. It was pointing at the light and shadow on the other side of the plain. Needless to say, Su Ji and Fairy Xingyue were definitely in that light and shadow. At this moment, Xiaohua had no other choice. Xiaohua cautiously opened his Dharma eye with difficulty. However, after seeing an even denser patch of fine lines, there was actually a blank space. There was nothing. This is a little troublesome. Xiaohua closed his Dharma eye and pinched his chin. He looked at the plain, which was even more terrifying than the strange beast circle, and thought to himself, I wonder what's so strange about this plain. It was also at this moment that a few faint whistling sounds came from the distance. Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. He turned his head and saw a few black figures flying over from another direction. It seemed to be from the side of the fallen star palace. Xiaohua's divine sense could not go very far, and his vision could not see clearly. Chapter 45-43. After a while, the black figures were revealed. They were 4 demons and 2 humans. These demons and humans were obviously working together, and they were heading in a different direction from Xiaohua. However, when they saw Xiaohua from afar, they immediately flew over. When the human cultivator saw Xiaohua's appearance, he couldn't help but exclaim, Xiao. Master Xiao? Xiaohua looked at this person and didn't have any special impression. He already knew that this was the human cultivator who saw him outside the Star Moon Palace. Yes, it's me. Xiaohua nodded slightly. The human cultivator in front was a nascent soul cultivator of the Dao sect. He stopped and bowed. Junior is Qin Cheng, a Dao sect cultivator from Jing Province's Dry Feather Manor. Greetings, Senior Xiao. Then, the other Dao sect master of the 5th level hurriedly said respectfully, Junior is Ma Miaoka of Jing Province's Ma family. Greetings, Senior Xiao. He rise. Seeing a Dao sect cultivator and a Confucian cultivator working together, he was happy and raised his hand to signal the two to rise. After the 2 humans, there were naturally 4 demons. Among the 4 demons, one looked like a fire stork, one looked like a green leopard, one looked like a flying tiger, and one looked like a fox. However, these 4 demons were much stronger than the 2 humans. Other than the green leopard who was close to the sun-devouring realm, the other 3 were in the star-plucking realm. The 4 demons were hesitant. After all, they didn't know Xiaohua's temper. However, when Xiaohua looked at them, the smile on Xiaohua's face wasn't as distant as they feared. The 4 demons were overjoyed and hurriedly went forward to greet and introduce themselves. Xiaohua helped them up one by one and said with a smile, Where are you going? Senior, please no. We want to find a chance to pass through this ghost plane and head to the resplendent sea of stars. Ma Miaoka hurriedly replied, "But we've been looking for a long time and haven't seen a good opportunity. Moreover, when we passed through the strange beast circle, the cultivators who came with us all died. Only the 4 of us are left. Ghost plains." Xiao Hua immediately understood when he heard this. This must be the place with the inexplicable restriction that Su Ji had mentioned. However, listening to Ma Miaoka's words, he seemed to want to travel with Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua thought for a moment and asked, "Why are you heading to the resplendent sea of stars? Isn't there a lot of opportunities in the Lost Star Palace?" "Senior." Chen Cheng hurriedly smiled and said, "Although the Lost Star Palace is beneficial to the cultivation of the human race, there are not many opportunities for the monster race. Before we entered the Star Moon Palace, we had already discussed with these immortal friends of the Thousand Demons' sacred realm that we would head to the resplendent sea of stars together. Moreover, many fellow immortals have contributed a lot in the beast enclosure. We can't go back on our word. So it's like that." Xiao Hua thought for a moment and nodded. "It's great that you all can keep your promise. But this is also my first time in Star Moon Palace. Although I have discussed with Star Moon Palace Master about the matters after entering Star Moon Palace, I have no idea how to pass through Ghost Plain. To tell you the truth, I didn't even know this place was called Ghost Plain before I met you. So, I don't have any special methods to guarantee that I can pass through this Ghost Plain." Xiao Hua's words could not be ignored by these humans and monsters. But whether they believed him or not was not something Xiao Hua could know. The fox smiled faintly and said, "Senior Xiao, you are a Mahayana stage human and a supreme being in Star Moon Palace. This Ghost Plain is a land of death for us, but for Senior, it's just a plain. We sincerely hope that Senior can help us pass through this land of death. We will never forget Senior's kindness." Sigh. Xiao Hua sighed helplessly. Even the law enforcers of the immortal realm weren't confident that they could pass through Ghost Plain. How could Xiao Hua, a Mahayana stage human, make such a promise? However, Xiao Hua didn't refuse. His gaze swept across the 4 demon clan members as he nodded and said, "I'm also going to pass through this so-called Ghost Plain to head to the resplendent sea of stars. Since we've met, it's fate. I'm willing to take all of you through this Ghost Plain." When the 4 demons and 2 humans heard this, they were overjoyed. Just as they were about to bow, Xiao Hua waved his hand again and stopped the 6 of them from bowing. He did not hide his attitude and continued, "However, I want to make things clear. There seems to be a restriction set up in the void above the Ghost Plains. Anyone who encounters this attack seems to have no chance of escaping. The palace master of the Star Moon Palace has personally witnessed 4 demons of the sun-devouring realm being instantly annihilated by this restriction. I have no confidence in being able to evade this restriction, nor do I have any confidence in being able to help you if you encounter this restriction. Of course, rest assured if I discover anything, I'll be sure to notify you." Of course, juniors believe in senior." The 2 humans and 6 demons hurriedly nodded their heads and answered with joy. They didn't believe that Xiao Hua could pass through the Ghost Plains without using any magical ability to break through the restrictions. Of course, even if Xiao Hua didn't have any special magical ability, having such a supreme cultivator of the 3 continents by his side was still better than risking their lives to pass through. "First, tell me what kind of opportunity you are looking for." Xiao Hua declined to comment and asked again. Chen Cheng hurriedly replied, "According to the seniors who've been to the Star Moon Palace before, although Ghost Plain is extremely long and almost boundless, there are more opportunities when you're about 40% of the distance from Floating Wave Mountain Range. Furthermore, when passing through Ghost Plain and encountering the restriction, the opportunity will appear. As long as you're not killed by the restriction, you can be transported to the resplendent sea of stars." "How far is this place from your ideal location?" Xiao Hua nodded and asked. "About half a meal's time." Chen Cheng hurriedly replied. Xiao Hua smiled. "Lead the way." "Yes, senior." Chen Cheng glanced at Ma Miaoka and respectfully replied. The 2 of them flew in front to accompany Xiao Hua, while the 4 demons tactfully followed behind. It seemed that the secret of passing through Ghost Plain was already a well-known secret. After flying for half a meal's time, another 10 demons and 4 Confucian cultivators flew over from other directions. There were even dozens of greater demons waiting at the edge of floating Wave Mountain Range. Seeing Xiaohua, a Grand Ascension Stage human, arrive, all the demons were pleasantly surprised and came over to greet him. Xiaohua had no choice but to raise his hand and help the demons up, saying, "There's no need for formalities. This is my first time here, so I don't know much about Ghost Plain. What plans did you all have before? What plans do you all have now? Just take this old man into consideration." "Yes, senior." When the few great yaos heard that, they became even happier. After all, they had already discussed this before entering the Star Moon Palace. Now that Xiaohua had suddenly appeared, their plans had been disrupted. If Xiaohua were to continue acting on his own, who would dare to disobey him? In that case, all of their previous arrangements would be for naught. Thus, the human cultivators chatted with Xiaohua, while the sharp-looking greater demons, including that fox, gathered together to discuss and wait. After another incense stick's worth of time, just as Xiaohua was starting to get impatient, another dozen greater demons flew over. These greater demons were all injured and appeared to be in quite a sorry state. When they saw Xiaohua, they were also surprised and hurriedly extended respectful greetings. Xiaohua waved a hand, indicating for them to meet up with the other greater demons. Meanwhile, he turned his gaze toward Ghost Plain, which was beginning to glow. Moments later, 3 greater demons came over and respectfully said, "Senior, we can enter the plane now." "All right." Xiaohua nodded. "Do you want me to go in first?" The greater demon nodded with an awkward expression. "Yes, Senior is a Grand Ascension Stage human." "Humph, how can that be?" A great grandmaster at the side hurriedly snorted and said, "Before we arrived at the Star Moon Palace, we had already discussed this. Your demon clan's demon body is the strongest. The one in front should be your demon clan's great demon swallowing Sunday. How can we let a Grand Ascension Stage senior lead the way? He should be walking in the middle." "This," Sun Devourer stuttered and replied, "Didn't Senior Xiao say?" Before the greater demon could finish his sentence, another fox interjected, "During our discussion, we also made it clear that we should put the most powerful and confident ones in the front. Senior Xiao is the most powerful, so we naturally have to ask him to walk in the front and protect us." "No, we don't agree." Another scholarly cultivator also yelled. Xiaohua smiled. He was naturally aware that whoever was arranged to walk in the front and who was arranged to walk in the back would be a competition between the human race and the demon race. Under normal circumstances, Xiaohua would most likely listen to the scholarly cultivators and walk in the middle. At the very least, he wouldn't walk in the front. However, he also understood that in this Ghost Plains, where even Su Ji wasn't confident, luck was the most important factor, so there was no difference between walking in the front and walking in the back. Furthermore, he had already said that he would listen to their arrangements, so he naturally couldn't go back on his word. However, Xiaohua was still a little perplexed. If they wanted him to take care of the demon race and the human race, then he should be in the middle. If he was arranged to walk in the front, then he wouldn't be able to take care of too many demon race beings. Could it be that these demon race beings have some other plan? Xiaohua's brows furrowed as he thought to himself, would they have the guts to do something like this? However, after Xiaohua landed on the plains, he began to understand what was going on. This plains was extremely strange. Not only was he unable to release his spiritual sense, but he also couldn't use his spiritual sense to probe the surrounding space. Even his gaze was pitch black, and he couldn't see the faint starlight up ahead. It was as if there was no end to this Ghost Plains. Under such circumstances, even if he was at the center, he most likely wouldn't be able to take care of too many demon race beings. As such, it was best for him to lead the way. Chapter 45-44. All of you follow me. Xiaohua turned his head to take a look. Chen Cheng, Ma Miaoka, and Fox were following closely behind him. There were also some humans behind them. The other demons did not follow. Clearly, they were the first batch that sun-devouring great demon had mentioned. Yes, Senior. Chen Cheng and Ma Miaoka responded, and their flying speed increased slightly. However, The moment they sped up, the two whirlwinds hit the light and clouds protecting their bodies. The strength of the whirlwinds was so great that they staggered, and their flying speed decreased again. As he looked at their sorry state, Xiaohua came to an understanding. If nothing unexpected happened, then this specter plane was still a superimposition of two layers of space. The so-called restriction was probably the restriction of another space. When he thought of this, Xiaohua became anxious again. His Dharma eyes couldn't see through the fine lines of time, so he naturally couldn't see through the restrictions of the other space. Especially, the other space was obviously an ancient primitive space, so how could the restrictions within it be easy to deal with? Follow behind me. Xiaohua thought for a moment. He waved his hand and a layer of lightning appeared. He wanted to protect himself and the group of humans and demons, just like when they were in the strange beast enclosure. Unfortunately, the lightning mist had only rushed out a few meters when a sizzling sound came from the space. An indescribable grayish-black liquid appeared and corroded the lightning mist in a moment. Hiss! Xiaohua sucked in a breath of cold air. He raised his hand and made a grabbing motion. Ka-cha-cha! A huge hand of lightning that was dozens of meters in size appeared and fell towards the space in front of him. As Xiaohua expected, in just a few breaths of time, a grayish-black hand that was even bigger than the lightning hand fell. The huge hand of lightning was also obliterated. Senior, Chen Cheng said in a low voice from behind. Junior heard that on the ghost plane, whether it's the human race's Daoist divine abilities, Confucian techniques, or Buddhist techniques, or the demon race's demon physique, they're all restrained. Yes. Xiaohua nodded. He quietly raised his finger and a strand of demonic qi appeared. It pierced the space like a needle. Sizzling. A small, almost inaudible sound came. The demonic qi was also corroded. Oh my. Xiaohua smacked his lips and said with a bitter smile, "Looks like this Xiao only has the soul technique and heavenly dragon technique left." However, these two divine abilities were not suitable to be revealed in front of these cultivators. They would have to wait for a while. Now, this Xiao will first try an escape technique. Soon after, Xiaohua seemed to be flying slowly. However, he also activated his 5 elemental escape technique, wind escape technique, lightning escape technique, etc. to see the effect. However, the results were not as optimistic. Aside from the water escape being slightly faster, there was no difference in the other escape techniques. Thus, Xiaohua activated his water escape technique and flew forward. After flying for the time it took to finish a meal, Xiaohua didn't encounter any danger, nor did he encounter any exotic beasts. Other than silence, there was only darkness. However, Xiaohua's heart didn't relax. Instead, it gave birth to a feeling of insecurity. Just like the darkness before dawn, danger was inevitable. The more there was no movement, the more it meant that danger was right in front of him. Sure enough, just as Xiaohua's eyes were darting around, ow ow, a scream sounded from behind Xiaohua and the others. Xiaohua was shocked and hurriedly stopped. However, before he could stabilize himself, whoosh! A gust of wind came from behind him. Even someone as strong as Xiaohua found it difficult to stabilize himself when faced with this gust of wind. He drifted along with the gust of wind into the distance. Its speed was actually several times faster than Xiaohua's flying speed. Spatial laws. There's actually spatial laws in this gust of wind. Xiaohua was naturally different from Qin Cheng and the others. Other than being shocked, he could naturally sense the strangeness of this gust of wind. He almost cried out in disbelief in his heart. The gust of wind in this ghost plains actually has spatial laws that can annihilate all the cultivators in the 3 continents. No wonder Su Ji's face turned pale at the mention of it. Although Xiaohua had overestimated the danger of Star Moon Palace, at this moment, he finally understood that, even if he had encountered a spatial fragment of the immortal realm, even if he had escaped from the mouth of an immortal beast, he still underestimated Star Moon Palace. This Star Moon Palace was definitely not a place where cultivators from the mortal realm could enter. Even the immortals from the immortal realm did not have the confidence to escape unscathed. Moreover, Xiaohua completely understood why Star Moon Palace was unknown before Fairy Xingyu appeared and only became famous after Fairy Xingyu was banished to the 3 continents. It was purely because the cultivators and demons who had entered Star Moon Palace previously did not have the ability to leave alive. Only the 2 immortals, Fairy Xingyu and Su Ji, who had special magical powers, were lucky enough to enter and leave. Moreover, it was precisely because the cultivators and demons who entered Star Moon Palace in the future followed the 2 immortals that they had a chance to leave alive. Which ancient almighty refined Star Moon Palace? Xiaohua smiled bitterly. Since cultivators from the mortal realm cannot enter, why did it appear in the mortal realm? Isn't this digging a trap for cultivators from the mortal realm? Just as Xiaohua was smiling bitterly, a huge light shadow flashed past in front of his eyes, which was the place where he had flown past and where the screams had come from. Sadly, in front of the light shadow, there were 3 demons and 1 human who were struggling in the fierce wind. They did not have any resistance at all when the light shadow passed by. Screams were immediately heard. With the help of the light shadow, Xiaohua could clearly see that the bodies of the demons and humans were instantly shattered into pieces. Moreover, the pieces disappeared in a flash. Not only were they weak, even their souls were unable to escape. This light shadow was really as terrifying as a ghost. Xiaohua had heard Su Ji's description earlier and knew how terrifying the restrictive spell was. However, when the restrictive spell was activated, Xiaohua was still shocked by its power. He had never seen such a powerful restrictive spell before. But after a flash of light and shadow, the gale rose again and mixed with the gale from before. Like a storm, Qin Cheng and the others had already been blown away to God knows where. As for Xiaohua, he was barely able to use the wind evasion technique to stabilize his body in the gale. After flying for half a cup of tea's time, the fierce wind disappeared again. Xiaohua stood in the darkness and silently looked behind him. Previously, there had been several screams. Dozens of demons and humans had been killed without any struggle. Xiaohua believed that even if he encountered them, he would not have much chance to escape. Human Mahayana realm cultivators were just ants here. Just as he was thinking, in the darkness, 3 demonic beasts and 2 humans appeared exhausted. Weren't they the fire stork, green bao, flying tiger, Qin Cheng, and Ma Miaoka who had been following behind Xiaohua? Xiaohua was overjoyed and hurriedly called out, "Quickly!" Qin Cheng and the others were also overjoyed to hear Xiaohua's call. Just as they were about to move, a powerful restrictive spell that Xiaohua had never seen before appeared out of thin air. It was as if the entire world had descended from the heavens and trapped Xiaohua, Qin Cheng, Ma Miaoka, fire stork, green leopard, and flying tiger. Xiaohua was shocked and his magic power surged rapidly as he tried to use the wind escape technique. Unfortunately, the magic power of a human Mahayana realm cultivator could not be mobilized at all in this restrictive spell. The starry sky nascent soul within his body was also restricted, and his 100 or so scattered nascent souls were unable to sense it at all. Immediately afterward, a huge light shadow fell, and the profound meaning of space instantly filled the surroundings. "Senior." Qin Cheng opened his mouth, but he was unable to make a sound. Xiaohua could only see Qin Cheng's lips move, but Qin Cheng and Ma Miaoka's bodies had already been reduced to fragments by the laws of space. The fire stork, green leopard, and flying tiger only lasted for a few breaths of time before they also collapsed. Xiaohua's body was also flickering with golden light, and large cracks had appeared on the surface of his body as his body began to collapse. Damn it! Xiaohua was trembling with fear. How could he allow himself to be restrained? He hurriedly used the soul cultivator's traveling south, north, and north technique to teleport into the distance. Even on the primitive continent, the soul cultivator's escape technique was a piece of cake, but under the restrictive spell of space, it was like wading through mud. Xiaohua tried his best to teleport, but it seemed that he had only teleported a few dozen feet. However, it was these few dozen feet that saved Xiaohua's life again. Xiaohua felt a huge light shadow flash behind him, brushing past his back as it fell. At the same time, Xiaohua also clearly sensed that where the light shadow fell, everything was reduced to nothingness. Oh no! Xiaohua was just about to breathe a sigh of relief when a sense of crisis appeared on his back. Within the space of several dozen feet around the light shadow, the powerful laws of space roared like a wave, and these laws naturally engulfed Xiaohua. The power of laws poured into Xiaohua's body without restraint. It wanted to tear apart every bit of flesh and blood in Xiaohua's body. Damn it! Seeing that the power of laws was more powerful than thousands of hands tearing his body apart, Xiaohua roared. The lightning power of the three corpses in lightning surged around his body as he forcibly resisted. At the same time, the traveling south-north technique was once again activated, and Xiaohua's body forcibly moved again. Seeing that he could no longer endure and that his body was about to collapse, another gust of wind rose up. The light shadow flashed and unexpectedly disappeared from Xiaohua's side. Xiaohua's body was swept up by the gust of wind like broken cotton and rushed into the distance. An uncontrollable berserk force was born in the space around Xiaohua. Then, as if it had broken through several layers of space shackles, the spatial explosion and the conversion of the laws of space appeared around Xiaohua. When Xiaohua was dizzy and didn't know where he was, a huge starry sky miraculously appeared in the sky in the distance. No way. Xiaohua, who had almost escaped death, looked into the distance in disbelief. His body was trembling like a sieve. Happiness had come too suddenly. Although he had inexplicably arrived at the edge of the ghost plane and was only a short distance away from the resplendent sea of stars, Xiaohua still didn't dare to relax. He carefully looked around and sped up. Chapter 45:45. As expected by Xiaohua, although he only used the time it took to finish a meal, behind him, on the ghost plains, there were several flashes of light and shadow. The screams could no longer be heard. Xiaohua also didn't know how many of the hundreds and thousands of monster clan and human clan would be able to make it through the ghost plains alive. Left and right, under several gusts of wind, he finally saw a huge platform. It wasn't until his body landed on the platform powerlessly that he was able to release his divine sense again. His mind could also sense the space around him. Only then did his heart completely relax. This Xiao has finally passed through the ghost plains. Damn it, this ghost plains is really the ghost plains. Xiaohua muttered to himself as he sat down on the platform, which was a rare sight. He looked at the grayish-white plains. Right at this moment, another light and shadow appeared in the distance. Xiaohua didn't even think about it and opened his delusion-breaker eyes. He really wanted to see what exactly those restrictions that seemed to be everywhere were. Unfortunately, Xiaohua was ultimately disappointed. He saw that the ghost plains was the same as before, still covered in layers of fine lines. The so-called light and shadow was extremely far away from him, so how could he see it clearly? The light and shadow disappeared, and he also didn't see any restrictions. Forget it. Xiaohua was helpless. Just as he was about to close his delusion-breaker eyes, suddenly, the entire platform shook greatly. Xiaohua very naturally looked towards the source of the tremors. Wherever his delusion-breaker eyes passed, Xiaohua's heart was even more shocked than the platform. Because through the fine lines, he saw a huge pillar of golden light stop on the platform in the distance, then immediately disappeared. This. Xiaohua opened his mouth wide and cried out in disbelief. Could it be that the restrictions on the ghost plains are mobile? And they're not simply placed on the plains? However, in the next instant, another inconceivable thought appeared in his mind. On this ghost plains, there are ancient divine beasts that are even more powerful than the strange beasts in the strange beast pens? They were in another space and could move freely within Star Moon Palace. Could they easily kill everything in this space? Of course, there was another possibility. The golden pillar I saw just now was the body of a divine beast. This divine beast was too huge. It didn't know that there were humans and demons from the 3 continents in this space. It was just that when it was moving, it bumped into the humans and demons in this space. Because its law of space could pass through the layers of time, it accidentally bumped into these demons who had the strength of a sun devourer. damn it, this is impossible. In the end, Xiaohua was too embarrassed to think too much about it, because what he thought was truly unimaginable. Even he didn't dare to believe it. Then, Xiaohua opened his transcendence vision and looked behind the platform where the golden pillar had disappeared. Behind the platform, there was naturally a blank space. Only the abnormally dense time-fine lines could be seen, and nothing else could be seen. After closing his delirium eyes, Xiaohua powerlessly sat back down on the platform. He stared blankly at the distant sky that shone through the darkness. What's after this platform? I wonder if that's a pillar-shaped restriction, or where the pillar-shaped divine beast went. Is that the end of the divine restriction? Perhaps the real Star Moon Palace is behind this platform? Xiaohua's strange thoughts popped up one after another. His curiosity was like a wild grass that was popping up randomly. However, Xiaohua was also clear in his heart that he definitely couldn't go beyond the platform. If there was such a powerful restriction or divine beast before the platform, then what about after the platform? He really didn't dare to believe that he would still have a chance to survive after going deep into the platform. After resting for a short while, there were no more flickers of light on the ghost plains. After that, more greater demons from the demonic beast race arrived one after another. These greater demons were clearly frightened by the light, and when they saw Xiaohua, they were still in a state of shock. After the great demons bowed slightly, they also scattered and went to different places. After the great demons, there were also some humans who flew over. These humans were all pale and scared out of their wits. The human cultivators were naturally different from the great demons. When they saw Xiaohua, they were very respectful. They all stood on the platform and quietly listened to Xiaohua's instructions. Xiaohua stood up, looked around, and asked, "Are there any more human cultivators behind?" "We don't know." A tall general dressed in battle armor said, "We were arranged to be in the second group." When the restriction was triggered, the entire plain was filled with hurricanes. We and the surrounding humans were all blown away. "Yes, we also didn't know why we came here." Another master dressed in Confucian robes echoed. Xiaohua lowered his head and looked at his right hand. The arrow and light that disappeared in the ghost plains appeared again, and the distance between the arrow and the light was very close. The direction the arrow pointed to was the same as the platform Xiaohua was on, and it was the opposite of where the light and shadow shook. Xiaohua thought for a while and asked, "Where are you going now?" "I'll let you know." The general said respectfully, "According to the seniors who entered the Star Moon Palace earlier, this place is the deepest part of the Star Moon Palace. Behind this platform is the abyss of the void. We can't go any further." In the past, there were great demons who didn't believe it and went in to investigate. However, no one who went in has ever returned alive. Instead, to the left of this platform is the resplendent sea of stars. It's where our opportunity lies. We can find any starry sky to comprehend. We're going to take a look at the starry sky over there. At this point, the general pointed to the place where the light and shadow shook, and a trace of hope appeared on his pale face. Seeing the general's expression, and then looking at the other cultivators, they all had the same expression. Even the great Yao who had left after bowing earlier also harbored the same longing as them. Xiaohua couldn't help but sigh. He recalled Zhu Qing's words at the star-plucking tower in the Copper Pillar Nation. Everyone's opportunities are different. There are Confucian cultivators who comprehend the heavenly heart and become literary stars. There are also demon kings who comprehend the heavenly heart and become great saints. Of course, there are also Daoist seniors who break through the void and ascend. Yes, fellow immortal Xiao, believe it or not. According to the records of my Star Moon Palace, among the few who entered the Star Moon Palace, there were indeed many who obtained the opportunity to ascend to the heavens and became the most powerful figures in the 3 continents. Presumably, the different opportunities Zhu Qing spoke of were the opportunities in the starry sky near this platform. It was no wonder that these humans and demons gave up on the opportunities in the fallen Star Palace and risked their lives to cross the ghost plains. Their purpose was to comprehend the starry sky that could allow them to reach the heavens in a single step. Looking at the many cultivators of the human race who had high aspirations, what could Xiaohua say? It was not good to have excessive ambition, but ambition was also the motivation for cultivation and the support for advancement. Xiaohua could not blame them for anything other than encouraging them. Therefore, Xiaohua raised his finger and pointed to the place the general was going and reminded him, "According to what I know, there are more restrictions there. Just now, I even saw a flash of light. If you want to go there, you have to be careful." "Yes, thank you for the reminder, Senior." The general nodded and asked again, "Then where does Senior want to go?" I want to go there." Xiaohua pointed to another place and smiled. "That is where the Star-Picking Tower's disciples are going. I have an appointment with the master of the Star Moon Palace." "That's great." A few Confucian cultivators smiled. "Then we will follow behind Senior. I believe the master of the Star-Picking Tower will not mind." Instead, the general and some Confucian cultivators hesitated and bowed. "We will not follow Senior. You can go by yourselves." "Be careful." Xiaohua nodded and said, "Actually, the Star Moon Palace is full of danger. It is better to believe in yourself than to believe in others. It is better to rely on yourself than to rely on others." Previously, on the Ghost Plains, this old man was also powerless. Seeing Xiaohua speak so sincerely, the human cultivators were all moved. After all, they were disciples of various aristocratic families, and there was no lack of opportunities to get close to the literary sage, or even the literary star. In their eyes, the supreme cultivators of the human race were all abnormally dignified. Not to mention a word, even a glance would not fall on them. How could they meet such an amiable and approachable person? Everyone looked at each other, and no one dared to say anything. Because they came from different aristocratic families, they did not dare to trust each other too much. However, in their hearts, they all had a plan. Everyone bowed and saluted, and then those who should leave hurriedly left, while those who stayed behind stood respectfully at the side. The respect at this time was naturally different from before. It was from the heart and superfluous on the surface. After waiting for a while, Xiaohua recalled that Chen Cheng and the others had already said that it was impossible to pass through the Ghost Plains by relying on the magical powers of the human race and the demon race alone. It was only possible with the help of the hurricanes produced by triggering the restrictions. Now, there was no light shadow, which meant that the restrictions had not been triggered. Naturally, there would not be any human race and the demon race coming. So Xiaohua stood up and said, "Let's go." "Yes, Senior." Everyone answered, and followed behind Xiaohua. There were restrictions on the platform that Xiaohua could not sense. Previously, when he came over from the Ghost Plains, he saw a huge starry sky, but when he landed on the platform, the starry sky disappeared again. After Xiaohua flew for a while, many light shadows appeared in front of him. These light shadows appeared and disappeared, and were somewhat vague. However, when Xiaohua's gaze fell on the light shadows, it felt as if his gaze was drawn into them. When Xiaohua flew for another 1,000 feet, a huge starry sky actually covered the top of his head without any obstruction. Is this the resplendent sea of stars? Xiaohua's figure stopped for a moment, and he lowered his head to look at his right hand. The arrow on his right hand was still pointing forward, and it did not stop. Xiaohua was just about to move when a Confucian cultivator behind him said respectfully, "Senior, this junior intends to comprehend the mystery of the starry sky here. Good. I hope your wish will come true." Xiaohua nodded. After that Confucian cultivator saluted, he rushed into the starry sky and disappeared in a moment. Chapter 45-46. Then, Xiaohua continued to fly forward. Although he felt that he had flown very far, the starry sky above his head seemed to have never changed. If Xiaohua didn't know that he had been flying all this time, he would have suspected that he had been imprisoned in a certain place. Just as Xiaohua was about to search for Su Ji and the others, something flashed in front of his eyes. It was as if there were some halos flashing by. Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. He stopped and looked up, only to see that the starry sky was different from before. Not only was it different, the strange scene in front of his eyes made Xiaohua stupefied again. In front of Xiaohua's eyes, different pieces of starry sky had miraculously appeared on the horizon. The starry sky that Xiaohua had passed by earlier had already disappeared and turned into a small piece of starry sky, hanging at the edge of this different starry sky. Adjacent to this piece of starry sky was a faint, fuzzy halo. This halo seemed to be the boundary of the starry sky, separating the different pieces of starry sky. Although the starry sky in each piece of starry sky was bright, the brilliance that flashed was different, and the rhythm of the flashing was also different. In particular, one didn't need to distinguish them. As long as one's gaze swept across these pieces of starry sky, a feeling would emerge from the bottom of one's heart, letting one know that each piece of starry sky was different. Damn it! Xiaohua looked at this amazing, resplendent, and vast starry sky and finally understood the origin of the resplendent sea of stars. He couldn't help but sigh and say, "This is the real work of an ancient almighty expert." Presumably, each starry sky is the starry sky of a certain realm. So many starry skies. I wonder how many realms' starry skies are there. It should be Feng Wu who came here. The starry sky he attracted in the Great Sage Hall was only the starry sky of the 3 continents. Now that he is here, he can see the starry sky of various realms. If he can attract the starry sky of these realms, then what kind of miracle would that be? While sighing, Xiaohua's right hand began to shake. The arrowhead and the light dot had already merged. After the brilliance dissipated, the astrolabe appeared in Xiaohua's hand again. Without waiting for Xiaohua to raise his hand, the astrolabe transformed into a shooting star and flew towards one of the countless stars in the starry sky. Immediately after, a boundless consciousness swept over. Su Ji's calm voice transmitted over, "Xiaohua, you're here?" A strange expression appeared on Xiaohua's face. He nodded and replied, "Yes, Senior. Junior has finally arrived at the resplendent sea of stars. And come over and we'll talk." Su Ji sensed the strangeness in Xiaohua's tone and didn't explain. Xiaohua looked at the human cultivators on the left and said, "Everyone, this old man is going to look for Master Xingyu. You all can go and comprehend by yourselves. It seems that there is no danger here. As long as you control your cultivation speed, don't be too greedy, and don't go too deep into the starry sky, you will be able to reap some benefits." "Yes, I understand." Numerous cultivators were eager to give it a try when they saw the true faces of the numerous starry skies. At this moment, they listened to Xiaohua's instructions and saluted respectfully before each of them found a different starry sky and soared into the sky. Xiaohua wasn't in a hurry to find Su Ji. Instead, he released his divine sense to investigate. However, when his divine sense approached these pieces of space, he discovered something strange. Although each piece of the starry sky didn't look very big, the place where one's spiritual force landed was actually no different from a real starry sky. Spiritual force had a tendency to sink into it very easily. Xiaohua's spiritual force didn't dare to get too close. Since he couldn't get too close, he couldn't carefully explore every piece of the starry sky. Xiaohua's plan to find the 3 continents, the ruins, or the Great Desolation continent's starry sky from these thousands of starry skies was shattered again. Moreover, every time Xiaohua's spiritual force swept past a dozen pieces of starry sky, 1 or 2 pieces of starry sky would appear that he couldn't get close to them. It was as if there was a layer of restrictions sealing the starry sky. Since his exploration was fruitless, Xiaohua gave up and urged his figure to fly towards the place where Su Ji's spiritual force swept past. At this moment, the starry sky was different from the previous one. The starry sky above the horizon was like a curtain of stars. It wasn't as vast as the previous starry sky. In just half a meal's time, Xiaohua had flown over 1,000 pieces of starry sky and already saw Su Ji and the others stopped in midair. At this moment, Su Ji's body was completely enveloped in a faint silver brilliance. Outside the brilliance, there was something like a chain that tightly bound him from top to bottom. Even so, some immortals' coercion that ordinary cultivators couldn't resist still seeped out of the chain and surged in all directions like waves. Next to Su Ji was Fairy Xingyu. Her body was also suffused with mottled silver light, similar to Su Ji's. Their faces were covered by the silver light, so no one could see them clearly. In front of the 2 immortals, In a place extremely far away, thousands of human clan cultivators were arranged in a strange formation. They were facing a dozen pieces of starry sky and were waiting for battle. "You're finally here." Fairy Xingyu turned her head to look at Xiaohua, her tone unusually cold. "I thought you wouldn't come again." Xiaohua was already a little angry. Seeing Fairy Xingyu like this, his tone also turned cold. "It's not that I didn't want to come. It's because I encountered too many dangers in Star Moon Palace that I didn't know about. I'm even inferior to those Confucian great grandmasters and the great demons of the demon clan. The exotic beast pen, the Fubo mountain range, the Lost Star Palace, the Ghost Plain, oh, and this resplendent star sea. I've never heard of such wonderful names. If I hadn't been lucky, I wouldn't have been killed by the exotic beasts in the exotic beast pen or killed by the restriction of the Ghost Plain. How could I have lingered at death's door and arrived here? I've made it clear to you. As long as you pass through the transmission channel, immediately activate the star disk. We will wait for you outside the exotic beast pen and bring you here." Fairy Xingyu said faintly. "These so-called dangers are not dangers at all. But you didn't activate the star disk at all. How could we find you? It was you who wanted to take risks in these places. What does it have to do with us? You brought this upon yourself. Are you going to blame us for it? Is this the senseless risk you mentioned?" Xiaohua smiled coldly and pointed to the thousands of disciples who were on guard in the distance. "I remember that when we came in from outside the Star Moon Palace, there were tens of thousands of disciples. How many are left now?" "That's none of your business," Fairy Xingyu replied. "Before they came in, I already told them that I can't guarantee their safety. But I can guarantee that if they survive, not only will they be rewarded by Star Picking Tower, but they will also be able to improve their cultivation." "Xiaohua," Suji spoke. "You don't have to blame Xingyue. This was a matter of mutual consent. If they weren't willing, Xingyue would never force them. As for you, alas, it's my fault. Xingyue wanted to tell you about the dangers in the Star Moon Palace in detail, but I was afraid that you wouldn't come. So I hid it from you. In fact, on the other hand, I never thought that the dangers you mentioned earlier would pose any threat to a Mahayana realm human. The most dangerous one is the Ghost Plain. I also think that it can't be compared to the Heaven Prison at all. You were lucky enough to come out of the Heaven Prison. The Ghost Plain is just a piece of cake." At this point, Suji raised his eyes to look at the dozen or so stars on the left. Although he couldn't see the expression on his face, Xiaohua could still feel the deep regret in Suji's tone. "Since you feel that everything we have done is unfair to you, you can give up. We won't force you." "Suji." Fairy Xingyu was shocked. "Are you crazy? At this point, how can you say this? In your current situation, how can you wait until the next opening of the Star Moon Palace? Xingyue, do you still remember the agreement you and I made when you formed the Star Moon Palace?" Suji didn't answer Fairy Xingyu's question. Fairy Xingyu was stunned and replied without hesitation, "Of course I know. Isn't that your three uncertainties? First, you're not allowed to interfere with the cultivation of the three continents. Second, you're not allowed to get involved in the disputes of the three continents. Third, you're not allowed to use your magical powers to bully the weak." At this point, Fairy Xingyu understood. She glared fiercely at Xiaohua and didn't say anything else. Suji said faintly to Xiaohua, "Xiaohua, did you hear that? Do you think it would be difficult for us to attack the Immortal Palace directly with our magical powers, kill Immortal Emperor Go Qin, and then support the primordial chaos ancestor to become the leader of the Dao sect?" Ahem. Xiaohua touched his nose and looked up at the dozens of stars in front of him. He answered without answering the question. "By the way, which of these dozens of stars has a passage?" In fact, Xiaohua had already had some ideas outside the Star Moon Palace. However, he also knew that even though Fairy Xingyu and Suji were both immortals, and Suji was an upright and plain-spoken immortal world's law enforcer, they were still humans after all. It was inevitable that they would have their own plans. They didn't talk about the situation in the Star Moon Palace in detail, and Xiaohua didn't care. In particular, Both humans and demons on the 3 continents knew that the Star Moon Palace was useful for humans and demons at the 7th level of essence power. Xiaohua hadn't expected the Star Moon Palace to be so dangerous that even an immortal like Su Ji would be injured. That was why he was enraged when his life was threatened again and again. After Su Ji's explanation, Xiaohua, who had always been easygoing, put himself in Su Ji's and Fairy Xingyu's shoes and understood their difficulties. His resentment had long disappeared. Fairy Xingyu snorted coldly. Didn't you want to leave? No one wants you to stay. Hee hee. Xiaohua laughed. I want to leave, but I can't bear to part with those cultivation techniques, immortal ink slips, and the like. Little money grubber. Fairy Xingyu also scolded with a smile. Su Ji didn't say much. He pointed at the dozens of stars and said, many of the stars in the resplendent sea of stars will change their positions and constellations every time the Star Moon Palace appears. The first time we found a star with the aura of the immortal world, it was near here. However, every time we came in, it was not in its original position. Of course, the distance it moved each time was not too far. Therefore, if nothing unexpected happens, that star should be among these dozens of stars. As for which star it is, we'll know when the aura of the immortal world appears in a while. Chapter 45-48. At this point, Su Ji seemed to have thought of something. He looked at Xiaohua and said, by the way, speaking of the 3 forbids, Xiaohua, if you have time in the future, go to the Bronze Pillar Nation. No, it's not the Bronze Pillar Nation anymore. It's the Jade Rock Nation, right? Go to the Seven Suns Temple there and take a look at your Dao sect blood steel. Seven Suns Temple? Xiaohua was stunned and asked, what's wrong with the Dao sect blood steel? You'll know when you see it. Su Ji didn't want to say more. He only replied, I've already said the 3 forbids. What else do you need me to say? Alright. Xiaohua was speechless. He then looked around and asked, Senior, you've been waiting for a long time, right? After all, he had spent a lot of time in other places. Yes. Su Ji nodded. I've waited longer than before. Xiaohua hesitated and said, you didn't miss it because you were delayed when you came in, right? Fairy Xingyu spat. Don't jinx it. Can't you say something nice? Ah. Xiaohua looked around and asked again, what's beyond this starry sky? What is it? Senior, have you seen it? If it were you, would you dare to go? Fairy Xingyu asked. Of course I wouldn't. Xiaohua answered with a smile. But Senior, you're an immortal. No matter what, you're braver than me. Our strength is limited because of our physical bodies, so we don't dare to go too deep into the Star Moon Palace. Su Ji replied, the places you've been to are the places we've been to on our 3rd and 4th trips. From the 5th time onwards, we've basically followed the original route and directly looked for this starry sky. As for what's beyond the starry sky and the platform, we don't know. Of course, as far as I know, many demons have gone to the platform, but none of them have ever returned. Oh, the killing thunder is on the other side of the starry sky. It seems to lead to the platform. With your cultivation, you should be able to get a little closer. If you're lucky and don't encounter the thunder, you should be able to see the secret behind the platform. Curiosity killed the cat. Fairy Xingyu reminded him. You're already a Mahayana realm cultivator. As long as you cultivate steadily, you'll be able to ascend to the celestial realm sooner or later. I suggest that you don't explore it. Boom! At this moment, the entire starry sky seemed to tremble. A powerful aura of the immortal realm emerged from somewhere in the starry sky like a gale and crashed down. Not to mention the thousands of cultivators in the sky who were on guard, even Xiaohua's body trembled and his knees almost buckled. On the other hand, the silver light around Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu suddenly flourished, and their figures also expanded by several feet. Fortunately, the aura of the celestial realm was like a gust of wind. After it blew, the power of the stars and moons appeared in the starry sky, forcefully washing away the aura. The deterrent force gradually disappeared. However, even so, the thousands of cultivators were still paralyzed in the air, unable to move for a long time. That starry sky. As soon as the aura of the celestial realm disappeared, Su Ji raised his hand and pointed to the farthest starry sky. As he spoke, his figure flashed and he rushed to the starry sky. Fairy Xingyu was not in a hurry. She flew to the front of the cultivators and waved her hand. Thousands of starlight rays appeared from her hand and fell between the cultivators' eyebrows. In a moment, these cultivators all stood up in the air. Disciples, it's that starry sky. Fairy Xingyu raised her voice and said, "You can enter the starry sky with your own perception of the starry sky. If you can find the door to the starry sky, you will naturally appear from the starry sky. Even if you can't find the door to the starry sky, you don't have to worry. When the Star Moon Palace closes, you will still be pushed out of the starry sky by the Star Moon Palace. Moreover, whether you can find the door to the starry sky or not, the comprehension in this starry sky will definitely be of great help to your cultivation." "Yes, we understand." The cultivators answered excitedly because what Fairy Xingyu said was true. The cultivators who had entered this starry sky to search for the door, whether they succeeded or not, had gained a lot in their cultivation. "Okay, disciples, follow me in." Fairy Xingyu did not dare to delay too much. After she finished speaking, her figure turned into a silver-white starlight and rushed into the starry sky, disappearing in a moment. The thousands of disciples also flew over from various places and entered the starry sky. Xiaohua flew to Su Ji's side. Under the pressure of the silver light, Xiaohua could not get too close. He looked at Su Ji's figure, which was several times taller than him, and said in a low voice, "Senior, let's go in too." "Xiaohua." Su Ji did not move. Instead, he said in a low voice, "Do you understand what I said earlier? I hope you don't hate me." "Of course not." Xiaohua said with a smile, "This is my temper. When I have some grievances, I want to say them out loud. In fact, if I say them out loud, I will forget about them." "That's for the best." Su Ji nodded. "In the future, you will understand." Xiaohua was a little surprised. However, before he could ask again, Su Ji's figure flashed and disappeared. Xiaohua was stunned again. He suddenly came to a realization. Didn't the Star Moon Palace have timelines? Wouldn't Su Ji's teleportation break through the law of time? Xiaohua wanted to open his Dharma eye to take a look, but he had used his Dharma eye too much today. Xiaohua did not know if there would be a starry sky maze in a while, so he gave up on the idea and used his escape technique to rush into the starry sky. The feeling was similar to the last time he flew into the starry sky. When he first started to fly, the starry sky was far away. However, he did not know when, but the brilliant starry sky had quietly covered the sky above Xiaohua's head completely. In this strange starry sky, every star was so bright. Each star exuded an inexplicably powerful power of the stars and the moon. Moreover, there was a huge star halo at the edge of each starry sky. It was like a starburst fluctuation overflowing the entire starry sky. Along with this fluctuation, the star halo swayed slightly like a silk handkerchief. Strands of immortal qi, which Xiaohua was already familiar with, came crashing down from this fluctuation. Although there was not much immortal qi, it was enough to make thousands of cultivators bow down. These cultivators activated their divine abilities one by one. As they tried their best to resist, they formed a certain Dharma array. Fairy Xingyu was standing on this Dharma array. When she saw Su Ji and Xiaohua enter the starry sky, she raised her hand and took out her star shuttle again. Puff! A mouthful of immortal qi fell and the entire star shuttle exploded again, turning into thousands of star fragments that fell on the Dharma array. "Please, everyone." Fairy Xingyu took a deep breath and said. Hearing Fairy Xingyu being so polite, the cultivators of the human clan said in unison, "We understand. We will definitely do our best to serve Senior. Go." Fairy Xingyu issued an order. Thousands of star fragments soared into the sky and landed in various parts of the starry sky. The thousands of disciples also flew into the starry sky, following the star fragments into the starry sky and disappearing once again. After the cultivators left, Fairy Xingyu flew in front of Su Ji. She glanced at him but did not say anything. Just like Su Ji, she looked up at the bright starry sky and the star fragments that were still shining brightly in the starry sky. After a long while, the star fragments disappeared. Not a single cultivator appeared in the starry sky. Xiaohua knew that the two of them were a little nervous. He asked in a low voice, "Senior, is this the starry sky of the immortal world?" "If I'm not mistaken, it should be a part of the starry sky of the immortal world." Su Ji replied, "The immortal world is almost boundless and the starry sky is huge. I'm not sure where this starry sky is. Do you know Xingyu?" "Of course I know," Fairy Xingyu replied, "but don't worry, I won't tell you." "It's up to you," Xiaohua said with a smile. "When I go to the immortal world in the future, I'll find it myself." After a while, there were still no star fragments. Su Ji, Fairy Xingyu, and Xiaohua were a little anxious, let alone time. Xiaohua thought for a moment and asked again, "Senior, when I passed by some starry skies earlier, many of them could not be entered by divine thought. Is there a passage to the immortal world?" "The starry skies that cannot be entered by divine thought require special means. What the naked eye can see is just an illusion array," Su Ji replied. "As for whether there is a passage to the immortal world, I don't know. However, Xing Yu and I have checked many starry skies that can be entered by divine thought. There is no passage that we are looking for." "Oh, I remember now." Xiaohua thought of something again. He waved his hand and took out the Kunlun mirror. As the light vibrated, he took out the black box he had obtained from the Heaven Prison and the black box he had just obtained from the Lost Star Palace. He asked, "Senior, I just obtained 2 things in the Lost Star Palace. Can you help me take a look at them?" "Why are you so nosy?" Fairy Xingyu was a little impatient. "Let me take a look." Su Ji was not surprised. He raised his hand and the 2 boxes fell into his hands. Swish, swish, swish. As soon as the 2 boxes fell into Su Ji's silver hands, layers of thumb-sized inscriptions appeared. These inscriptions rushed toward the silver light crazily, and a sound like a surging sand tide was heard. "Celestial Imperial Equipment?" Fairy Xingyu was stunned and asked curiously, "There is a celestial imperial equipment of Confucian cultivators in the Lost Star Palace? How come I haven't seen it even though I've been there several times?" Xiaohua shrugged and curled his lips, saying, "I'm lucky. There's nothing I can do about it." "Hee hee." Fairy Xingyu snorted and said, "It's not until today that I know what it means to be shameless." "I'll try," Su Ji said as he scanned the box with his mind. "However, I'm not sure if I can break this thing." "It doesn't matter," Xiaohua said with a smile. "It's just something I picked up. Senior, please feel free to try." Su Ji raised his hand and threw the 2 boxes out. Then he raised both hands at the same time. Ka-cha-ka. Amidst the sound of thunder, Su Ji's 2 arms turned into 2 silver thunderbolts. Woo-woo. At the same time, a hurricane appeared in the whole space. The scattered celestial qi fell into the thunderbolts. Su Ji. Fairy Xingyu was shocked. "How can you activate the celestial qi? Do you want to die?" Su Ji did not answer Fairy Xingyu. Instead, he moved his body and the silver light around him began to flow rapidly. Ka-cha-ka-cha. The chains that bound the silver light made a rough sound. Boom. The 2 silver lights rushed out of the chains and fell into the thunderbolts. At the same time, the thunderbolts condensed thousands of feet of lightning in the nearby space. Chapter 45-49. Ka-cha. As Su Ji waved his hands, 2 thunderbolts fell on the box. The inscriptions that had calmed down and turned into nothingness surged out again. However, as soon as the inscriptions appeared, they were immediately split in half by the thunderbolts. Woo-woo. Bursts of space roared around the box. Circles of whirlpools gushed out from the void and rushed into the box. The inscriptions on the armor fell from the box like dead tadpoles. Then, the fist-sized box made a rumbling sound and began to expand. In a moment, it turned into a coffin that was more than 100 feet in size. As for the box Xiao Huada had left behind in the Fallen Star Palace, after cutting off a layer of restrictions, it had turned into a black ruler that was 1 foot long and 2 fingers wide. This. Xiao Hua was a little stunned. He thought that the box from the heaven prison would contain something extremely magical, but he really did not expect it to be a coffin. The coffin was pitch black, and it was unknown what material it was made of. The 8 edges of the coffin were engraved with 8 lifelike dragons that sealed the entire coffin tightly. Looking at the front and back of the coffin, there was a ferocious-looking dragon head and a ferocious-looking dragon tail. 9 dragons' coffin? Seeing the dragon scales made of inexplicable inscriptions and the tadpole-shaped clouds between the 9 dragons, even Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu could not help but exclaim, how could the 9 dragons' coffin appear in the 3 continents? Xiao Hua felt guilty and hurriedly asked, Senior, 9 dragons' coffin? What is this? 9 dragons' coffin? It's an item of the heavenly court. After thinking for a moment, Fairy Xingyu replied, it's usually used to hold corpses. Of course, most of the time, it's also a secret item to hold the heavenly court's book Immortals. As for what's inside, it's not something we can know. Seniors, you can't open it? Xiao Hua was a little disappointed. Su Ji nodded and said, the 9 dragons' coffin suppression can only be opened by Earth Immortals of the heavenly court. Moreover, one must have the special skills of the heavenly court's book Immortals. I'm afraid we can't open it. Immortal Emperor Go Qin can't open it? Xiao Hua asked. Of course. In this realm, the highest level of cultivation is at the 9th grade of essence energy. How can it be opened? Fairy Xingyu nodded. After a while, she smiled again and said, by the way, if you are lucky enough to find that book Immortal, there may be a way. Kiss it. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said with a face full of disdain, why would I make myself unhappy for no reason? Then, Xiao Hua pointed at the black ruler and asked, what about this? Fairy Xingyu waved her hand and took the black ruler. After examining it for a while, she handed it to Su Ji and said, this thing is a little strange. I can't tell what it is. What about you? Su Ji raised his hand and received the black ruler. After looking at it for a moment, he similarly shook his head and passed the black ruler to Xiao Hua, saying, I also can't discern the origin of this item. If he was not wrong, it should be an ancient divine item. You're fated to obtain it, so take care of yourself. Alright. Xiao Hua helplessly put the black ruler and the 9 dragons' coffin suppression into his space and said with a wry smile, it seems that I can only wait until I have the chance. The things in the Star Moon Palace are all extraordinary. Since you're fated to obtain them, you should cherish them. Don't underestimate them. Su Ji exhorted again. Yes, I understand. Xiao Hua hurriedly agreed. However, the treasures in his space were too precious. How could he take care of them one by one? Fairy Xingyu looked at the still starry sky and said in a low voice, Su Ji, until now, no cultivator has revealed their star shatterer. I'm afraid we won't be able to find anything today. Not necessarily. Su Ji replied. His tone was naturally filled with disappointment. Senior. Xiao Hua's heart skipped a beat and he said, you said before that if this starry sky is sealed by divine sense, then what the naked eye sees is an illusion array. If this starry sky is not sealed by divine sense, then what the naked eye sees is real, right? You also said that you need cultivators who are very sensitive to the power of the stars and the moon to find the passage to the immortal realm in this starry sky. Could it be that this starry sky is also an illusion array? This starry sky is a starry sky maze. Su Ji replied, the passage to the immortal realm is inside the maze. Alas, yes. Fairy Xingyu also sighed and said, the whole starry sky is a big array. Every time we come here, it changes. We have broken through it several times. Only the first time we were lucky enough to see the door of the passage. The other times we didn't even see the door. As for the first time, Su Ji continued, we were not prepared enough and Xingyue couldn't cooperate with me, so we couldn't open the door. A huge starry sky maze? Xiao Hua squinted and looked at the stars in the sky. He was eager to try. Xiaohua was born with a sense of direction in the void and had broken through many void mazes. However, this was the first time he had seen such a huge starry sky maze. Seeing such a mysterious star array, he couldn't help but say in a low voice, "Seniors, if you trust me, please follow me." Alright. Fairy Xingyu suddenly realized. Xiaohua, you were also a cultivator who passed the selection of Xingyue. Now that your strength has skyrocketed, I have forgotten about this. You take the lead. Su Ji replied, Xingyue and I will follow behind. You don't have to feel burdened. Even if we don't succeed this time, there will be a next time. Su Ji's words were clearly meant to comfort him. Xiaohua understood that Su Ji's divination skills had already predicted that this would be the last time the Star Moon Palace would be opened. With Su Ji's injuries, he would not be able to find a suitable body for the time being. How would he be able to last until the next opening of the Star Moon Palace? Therefore, Xiaohua urged his body to fly toward the starry sky without saying a word. As the starry sky approached, Xiaohua's gaze fell on it. Boom! There was a huge tremor and a roar in Xiaohua's mind. The whole starry sky was huge. Now, with the roar, it expanded again. It was almost vast. Xiaohua could barely see the whole starry sky with his naked eye. No wonder Fairy Xingyu wanted to find thousands of cultivators. Xiaohua thought to himself. An ordinary cultivator can't search the whole starry sky. They can only find thousands of cultivators and each of them can take a piece. But, if each of them takes a piece, won't these cultivators become a huge mountain that can't see? How can they find the passage to the star array? I guess Fairy Xingyu had no choice but to come up with this plan. Xiaohua looked at the starry sky without blinking. His eyes were also full of stars. These stars rotated and changed with his eyes. After a while, Xiaohua's eyes lit up. He waved his hand and said, Senior, please come with me. Fairy Xingyu could hardly believe her ears when she heard Xiaohua's confidence. She hurriedly moved and landed behind Xiaohua. Su Ji followed beside her at a moderate pace. In the starry sky and the void, Xiaohua's confidence was self-evident. In Xiaohua's eyes, such a vast starry sky maze was like a dharma array with ease. He flew leisurely in the starry sky without any hesitation or thought. Although they had flown for an hour and the entire starry sky still looked like a starry sky, Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu were ecstatic. This was because the immortal spirit qi was getting denser and denser. In the end, when Xiaohua rushed toward a star and was about to stop, Fairy Xingyu said ecstatically, That's right. It's here. I came here with Su Ji for the first time. We just have to turn right. Wait. Before Fairy Xingyu could finish speaking, Xiaohua hurriedly stopped her. Senior, you have to fly backward now. So do we have to fly backward? Fairy Xingyu was really puzzled. Yes, Xiaohua said resolutely. We have to fly backward. Don't ask me how I know. Senior, just follow me. As he spoke, he flew forward a few feet, stopped, and flew backward without looking back. After flying for a few feet before he could get close to Su Ji, he saw the space around him distort strangely. Xiaohua's figure fell into this distorted space. Good. Even someone as calm as Su Ji could not help but clap his hands. Fairy Xingyu was also dumbfounded. She shook her head helplessly and could only praise, Amazing, amazing. Then, the two of them flew to where Xiaohua was and flew backward again. When the distorted space shook, the starry sky was still the same starry sky. However, in front of the three of them, there was a huge yin-yang fish pattern slowly rotating in the starry sky. As it rotated, waves of immortal qi seeped out from the galaxy that condensed into the pattern. Fairy Xingyu's expression changed slightly when she scanned it. She said anxiously, Quick, Su Ji, we don't have much time left. The immortal qi has begun to weaken. I'm afraid the passage inside is about to close. But Su Ji did not dare to be negligent. He flew toward the yin-yang fish and said to Xiaohua, Xiaohua, I still need to borrow the power of your thunder cultivation. No problem. Xiaohua was overjoyed when he saw the yin-yang fish. He nodded and said, Senior, Please instruct me. I will do my best. Su Ji and Xiao Hua flew to the star array of the yin-yang fish. Su Ji pointed at the rotating yin-yang fish and said, I will be in charge of the yang side and you will be in charge of the yin side. First, we have to stop the rotation of the yin-yang fish and then activate the power of thunder to reverse it. The moment it is reversed, the starry sky gate will open and the passage to the immortal world will be inside. Although Xiao Hua had some doubts, he did not have time to ask Su Ji how he knew. Senior, please. Xiao Hua raised his hand and gestured. Su Ji's figure landed above the yin-yang fish and his body slowly rotated with the yin-yang fish. Xiao Hua followed closely behind and stood opposite Su Ji. Under their feet was the black and white star. The star looked very strange. It was obviously a star, but when one looked at it, it seemed to be another starry sky. One could not see the end of it. Rise. Su Ji raised his hands and two thunderbolts condensed into a water-blue ball suspended above the yin-yang fish. Chapter 45-50. Quick! Xiao Hua also hugged his hands in the air like a Tai Chi pushing hands. A huge nine heavens divine thunder condensed and hung above the yin fish. Break! Su Ji glanced at Xiao Hua and roared. The thunder in his hand turned into a sharp sword and pierced the yang fish. Xiao Hua was not slow either. Almost at the same time, he also pierced the nine heavens divine thunder into the yin fish. The yin-yang fish shook. The entire starry sky shook, and all the stars emitted brilliant starlight. Stop! Su Ji shouted again. The silver light around him shone brightly, and the dragon-like thunder poured into the yang fish. Xiao Hua roared. The nine heavens divine thunder, which was not inferior to Su Ji's, also surged into the yin fish. Crack, crack, crack. Another obscure sound was heard. The huge yin-yang fish indeed showed signs of stopping. However, just as a look of joy appeared on Fairy Xingyu's face, crack! With a crisp sound, the nine heavens divine thunder activated by Xiao Hua broke out of thin air. The power of the backlash hit Xiao Hua's chest like a big hand. Xiao Hua could not maintain his figure. With a boom, he rushed into the sky. Fairy Xingyu was shocked. Her figure swayed and landed beside Xiao Hua. She raised her hand to support him and looked at Xiao Hua's face again. Senior. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. Your power of thunder is too overbearing. I can't match it. Therefore, the yin-yang fish can't be balanced and can't stop at all. This is the least amount of force needed to stop the yin-yang fish. Su Ji was not surprised. He said faintly, why don't I try to reduce the force again? But Xiao Hua responded. The two of them activated the power of thunder again. Sure enough, their forces were balanced this time. The yin-yang fish showed signs of stopping. However, it was just a trend. It did not really stop. The two of them had no choice but to stop and look at each other. This is a dilemma. Xiao Hua frowned. If you use too much force, I can't cooperate. If you use too little force, the yin-yang fish can't stop. What should we do? Why don't I try again? Fairy Xingyu looked at Su Ji and said, my power of the stars and moon is more feminine. It can complement your power of thunder. Let's try it. Su Ji said helplessly, the power of the stars and moon is too soft. It can't restrain the power of the stars in the yin-yang fish. I'm afraid that my lightning power alone won't be able to stop the yin-yang fish. Don't be impatient. Xiao Hua's heart stirred as he asked, Senior, is there also a difference between yin and yang in the power of thunder? Of course. Su Ji nodded and said, the power of lightning is not only divided into yin and yang, it is also divided into heavenly stem and earthly branch, and it is also divided into the 5 elements, such as Gingxin metal lightning, Jia Yi wood lightning, Bing Ding fire lightning, Wu Ji earth lightning, etc. These are all recorded in Senior's unstoppable thunderbolt. Xiao Hua interrupted Su Ji's words and asked. Yes. Su Ji replied. Then, Xiao Hua raised his hand, activating the dark underworld devil lightning as he asked, is this considered soft lightning? Su Ji was shocked. This is the dark nether devil lightning? Senior doesn't need to care about the lightning power, Senior only needs to say whether or not it can be used. Xiaohua's expression didn't change as he asked, not giving Su Ji a chance to ask more questions. Of course. Su Ji replied meaningfully. Let's try again. Xiaohua flew onto the yin fish again. Boom. Su Ji and Xiaohua attacked again at the same time. The yin-yang fish finally began to slow down as it trembled. Good. Fairy Xingyu stopped being surprised and couldn't help but be secretly happy. However, at this moment, boom! The dark underworld devil lightning in Xiaohua's hand was cut into several pieces again. Xiaohua's figure was not sent flying this time. Instead, he was dispirited on the spot, the brilliance around his body dimming. Xiaohua! Fairy Xingyu was also moved and called out with concern. Just as she was about to fly over, Xiaohua stood up stubbornly and said in a hoarse voice, I understand, Senior. Although it is a balance of yin and yang, the power of my yin thunder is too weak and can't match Senior's yang. Yes. Su Ji's voice was also moved. He whispered, so your injury is more serious than last time. Forget it. Fairy Xingyu looked at the immortal qi in the yin-yang fish that was about to disappear and said, Xiaohua, don't try again. You can cultivate for another 1,000 years. Let's wait for the next time. No need. Xiaohua raised his hand and covered his chest. He activated the 5 qis unification technique and said, I know how to cooperate with Senior. Your dermic powers are insufficient. This is the fundamental problem. Fairy Xingyu shook her head and said, it can't be forced. Senior. Xiaohua ignored Fairy Xingyu and flew up. He said to Su Ji, are you ready? Su Ji was really moved. He nodded and didn't say anything to dissuade him. At this time, only men understood men's hearts. Women had to step aside. Rise. Xiaohua closed his eyes slightly and raised his hand to slap the top of his head. Boom. The 5 qis righteous thunder, 9 heavens divine thunder, 3 corpses yin thunder, and dark underworld devil lightning were unleashed at the same time. A 4-colored hand made a trembling sound and fell toward the yin fish. When the power of life and death from the 4-colored hand fell, all the stars in the yin fish immediately dimmed. This. Even Su Ji was dumbfounded, let alone Fairy Xingyu. He stuttered a few words and then came to his senses. He hurriedly activated the power of thunder and landed on the yang fish. There was a sound that sounded like the wailing of ghosts and the howling of wolves. The entire starry sky shook. The yin-yang fish, which had been rotating since ancient times, slowly stopped and gradually became still. The moment it stopped, the entire starry sky dimmed, and all the halos of the stars turned into still whirlpools. Open! Su Ji and Xiaohua looked at each other and roared at the same time. As the two of them activated their immortal qi and dermic powers, boom! The entire starry sky shone brightly. Countless whirlpools rotated in reverse, and the yin-yang fish also rotated in reverse. In just the moment of the reversal, boom! Xiaohua's figure was sent flying again. Countless space fragments flashed around him. Streaks of thick blood marks appeared silently and strangely on his body, whoosh! At the same time that Xiaohua was sent flying by the backlash, the yin-yang fish opened up like a rainstorm. A water-like silver light gushed out from inside. Fairy Xingyu was overjoyed. However, she did not rush in. Instead, she raised her hand and supported Xiaohua's falling figure. Her right hand wrapped around Xiaohua's waist and they flew into the yin-yang fish that had opened up. When they entered the yin-yang fish, Fairy Xingyu's left hand took out an item from her waist and stuffed it into Xiaohua's arms. She whispered in his ear, Humph, seeing how you put in so much effort, Zhai Xinglu and Moon Embracing Palace will benefit you. Seeing that Fairy Xingyu had finally given him Xingyu, Xiaohua was overjoyed. However, how could he be happy at this time? He had used all his dermic powers to help Su Ji forcefully reverse the yin-yang fish and break the starry sky restriction with the help of the 4-colored thunderbolt. However, all his dermic powers could not match Su Ji's thunderbolt power. He had only relied on the Tao of life and death in the four-colored thunderbolt to catch up with Su Ji in terms of realm and dermic powers and barely reverse the yin-yang fish. Xiao Hua could handle it with ease if he fought with others. However, compared to Su Ji's immortal spirit power, it was impossible for him to retract and release it freely. The moment the yin-yang fish was broken, he would immediately suffer a backlash from his dermic powers. Although he was not seriously injured, it was difficult for him to move for a while. Senior. Xiao Hua used the 5 Qis unifications technique to repair his internal organs and Daoist cultivation methods to condense his nascent soul. He opened his mouth again, but he didn't send a voice transmission. He merely mouthed, "Aren't you afraid that Senior Su will be jealous of us being so intimate?" Humph. Fairy Xingyu pursed her lips and sent a voice transmission. "In terms of lifespan, I can be your aunt for many generations. What is there to be jealous about?" Fairy Xingyu had sent a voice transmission to Xiao Hua, but when she took Xiao Hua through the yin-yang fish and saw the strange scene in the starry sky, she couldn't help but scream again. However, the starry sky behind the yin-yang fish was different from before. The stars in the starry sky were no longer bright stars. Instead, they were huge spheres. Some of the spheres were like blazing fireballs, emitting light. Some of the spheres were like water mist and ice chips. Some of the spheres had rings formed from huge amounts of crushed stones. Some of the planets had 2 or 3 small spheres revolving around them. Most of the spheres were suspended in the air by themselves, without any light or shadow. It was not the dazzling starlight that Xiao Hua had seen with his naked eye. In the vast and boundless starry sky, another irregular crack appeared in an area of tens of thousands of miles. Silver light poured out from this crack, and celestial spiritual energy rushed out like a heavenly river. It endlessly landed in this part of the starry sky, and wherever the silver light passed, it formed a pillar of light. At the bottom of the light column was an iron-green planet. The planet had been penetrated by the light column, and many cracks had appeared on the edge of the planet. The immortal spirit Qi had covered tens of thousands of miles of space. Compared to the space in other places, this space had obviously collapsed. When the brilliance of the light ball shone on it, it was extremely distorted. This is not the passage to the immortal realm. Fairy Xingyu was surprised and shouted again, "This is a crack in the immortal realm." That's right. Su Jizao flew in and understood with a sweep of his mind. He said calmly, "This should be a crack that appeared on the surface of the immortal realm when the Star Moon Palace appeared. However, even if it is a crack, you can still return to the immortal realm through this crack. Xingyue, hurry up. The crack is really shrinking. If we don't speed up, when the crack disappears, our efforts will be in vain." Chapter 45-51. Okay. Fairy Xingyu replied. She released her hand and placed Xiao Hua in the air. She glanced at Xiao Hua and said, "Xiao Hua, the light pillar of the immortal realm is in front of you. You can't get close without an immortal spiritual body. Thank you for your help. Su Ji and I will wait for you in the immortal realm." Xiao Hua nodded with a smile and replied, "Don't say anything. Let's go quickly. When I ascend to the immortal realm, I will immediately find you and Senior Su." "It's a deal." Fairy Xingyu knew that time was of the essence, so she didn't say anything more. She nodded at Xiao Hua and flew to Su Ji. "Let's go." Su Ji hesitated for a moment and also moved. At this time, Fairy Xingyu didn't have to worry about anything. The silver light around her shone brightly, and an oppressive pressure appeared. Her figure swayed and she fell into the silver light in the distance. Su Ji also let out a long roar. His figure flashed and appeared at the edge of the silver light. Fairy Xingyu fell into the silver light, and her figure began to slowly expand. The silver light around her merged with the light pillar, and Princess Baihua's body was revealed again. Princess Baihua was still beautiful, but her body was riddled with holes. As the silver light fell, her flesh and blood were cut off piece by piece, turning into wisps of green smoke. A light cluster of thousands of feet in size gradually emerged in the light pillar. In the light cluster, a silver mark was particularly eye-catching. The mark absorbed the immortal spiritual qi and shone brightly. An incomparably mysterious outline of a body gradually emerged. Xiaohua, thank you very much. Fairy Xingyu's voice sounded like thunder. Su Ji, let's go. See you in the immortal realm. Xiaohua smiled and urged his magic power to resist the pressure of the immortal realm. He raised his hand and gestured. But at this moment, Su Ji's faint voice sounded. Xingyu, you can go by yourself. I won't go back to the immortal realm with you. Ah? Not only was Xiaohua shocked, but Fairy Xingyu was also stunned on the spot. The light around her flickered incessantly. Why don't you go back to the immortal realm? Fairy Xingyu looked at the slowly closing crack and hurriedly asked, You and I have been busy for so many years. Now that we have finally reached the edge of the immortal world, why don't you go back? Xingyu? Su Ji opened his mouth, his tone as calm as ever. When I saved you back then, I was already heavily injured because I fought with the Heavenly Court's book Immortal. Why hasn't he recovered after so many years? How is this possible? Fairy Xingyu shouted. You did take a blow for me, but how could that injury not be healed? You haven't said anything for so many years. Have you recovered? I was lying to you. I didn't want you to worry. Su Ji said, that demonized book Immortal was very powerful. He directly injured my soul and touched my immortal mark. You should know that immortal mark. How can it be repaired in the lower realm? All these years, I've been searching for spiritual items that can mend the immortal mark. I did the same in the heavenly sanctum. But this kind of spiritual item doesn't exist in the 3 continents. It's hard to find even in the celestial world. So, even if I'm in the Pillar of Light now, it'll be difficult for me to return to the immortal dimension. How? How is this possible? You're not lying to me, are you? Fairy Xingyu was dumbfounded and murmured. Fairy Xingyu was dumbfounded. Xiaohua was even more dumbfounded. He didn't understand, but he knew. Because Su Ji was injured, he couldn't return to the celestial world even if there was a passageway to it. In order to let Fairy Xingyu return with peace of mind, he had been hiding this news. In an instant, Xiaohua thought of many things. Many things from before seemed to be clear to him. He couldn't help but look at Fairy Xingyu, who was covered in silver light. Like Xiaohua, Fairy Xingyu's previous details had already emerged in her mind. Because Su Ji couldn't return, he gave his inheritance and the inheritance of Qingqiu Mountain to Xiaohua without holding anything back. Even when entering the Xingyue Palace, Su Ji activated the immortal qi at all costs to stimulate the formation of the Starry Passage. Even when he found the corpses of the 2 celestial masters in the Yi Qiong Heavenly Mansion, Su Ji didn't take any of them and let Fairy Xingyu keep them. On the one hand, it was because he was protecting Xingyu and wanted to give all the credit to her. On the other hand, he couldn't return to the celestial world, so he could only let Xingyu take these things away. At this time, Fairy Xingyu also remembered that Su Ji had also been looking for something in the Yi Qiong Heavenly Mansion. Fairy Xingyu didn't understand at the time, but now she realized that Su Ji was looking for healing elixirs. Although Su Ji knew that it was just an extravagant hope, he still didn't want to give up. Thinking of this, Fairy Xingyu recalled all kinds of things. When they were in the hidden immortal continent, Su Ji was indifferent to her and deliberately created a barrier between them. He even kept his distance in the flower realm. It wasn't that Su Ji didn't want to chat with her, but that he didn't want her to fall too deep. Some of the words at that time were Su Ji's farewell words. Although Su Ji really wanted to harden his heart, he couldn't in the end. His words were ambiguous. At that time, Fairy Xingyu was unhappy and didn't quite understand. Now, she understood Su Ji's painstaking efforts. When she thought of how Su Ji risked his life to fight the immortal beast in the Yi Qiong Heavenly Mansion, Fairy Xingyu couldn't help but tremble. Fairy Xingyu shouted, Su Ji! How can you do this to me? Hearing Fairy Xingyu's cries, Su Ji couldn't help but feel heartbroken. A hero's breath was short, and love was long. The feelings that had accompanied him for so many years turned into tenderness at this moment. Kacha, With a burst of cracking sounds, the chains that had previously bound the silver light broke inch by inch. Su Ji's figure also turned into 1,000 feet in size. However, after the silver light disappeared, Su Ji's body, which was only left with white bones, was revealed. This body was melting at an extremely fast speed. However, after the white bones disappeared, the silver spots that should have been eye-catching in the light cluster that Su Ji had transformed into were now dim and even mottled. When the immortal chi fell, the whole spots were trembling. At the same time, Su Ji's silvery outline gradually sank in the silver light pillar. He couldn't fly up at all like Fairy Xingyu. Seeing Su Ji's immortal mark like this, how could Fairy Xingyu not know that Su Ji was telling the truth? She flew down and hugged Su Ji's entire body. Her sobs reverberated through the entire starry sky like rain. Su Ji, you really deserve to die. How could you make me fall in love with you so much? And you, abandon me just like that? You let me return to the immortal world alone. Even if the immortal world has a long life and endless years, how can those years be spent with you by my side? Fairy Xingyu's cultivation was obviously no match for Su Ji. Su Ji's falling silhouette dragged her down slowly. Su Ji said emotionally, Xingyu, since it's love, it doesn't matter how long it is. I'm already satisfied that I can accompany you for so many days. You still have a long way to go, and you have a lot of cultivation to go. You'd better go back quickly. No way. Fairy Xingyu cried, I'd rather not return to the immortal world to be with you. What nonsense? Su Ji replied, if you don't return to the immortal world, how can I recover from my injuries? If you don't return to the immortal world, who will come back to pick me up in the future? Besides, I've found a way to enter the Star Moon Palace this time. The next time the Star Moon Palace appears, Xiaohua and I will come in again. Didn't you say that this is the last time the Star Moon Palace opens? Your divination skills have never been wrong. Fairy Xingyu didn't give up, as if she didn't believe Su Ji's words. Su Ji hurriedly replied, how can the divination skills be accurate? That day, I divined that Xiaohua would be my help in returning to the immortal world. But my immortal mark has been damaged. How can I return? So, how can the so-called last time be taken seriously? The Star Moon Palace had existed for God knows how many years since ancient times. How could it not appear just like that? Besides, if you can find the holy lotus seed of the Buddha fruit, you can also come in through this crack. You'd better go quickly. The crack of the immortal world is about to close. If you can't leave, I can't go back either. Holy lotus seed. Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. He hurriedly urged his body to rush over, but he was a cultivator of the human tribe. How could he resist the light pillar of the immortal world? It was impossible for him to get within 100 miles of the light pillar. Senior, Xiaohua said loudly, what is the holy lotus seed? Maybe I have it here. Unfortunately, Xiaohua's words still couldn't break through the light pillar. Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu couldn't hear him at all. Fairy Xingyu came to her senses and nodded, that's right. You're right. I'll hurry back to the immortal world. Just you wait, Su Ji. I'll definitely find the holy lotus seed of the Buddha kingdom for you. I'll risk my life for it. With that, Fairy Xingyu hugged Su Ji and kissed him fiercely on the lips. Then, she reluctantly let go of him and urged her body to fly toward the top of the light pillar. The light pillar, which had shrouded an area of tens of thousands of miles, became narrower as Fairy Xingyu flew higher. The crack above her head actually shrank at an accelerated rate. Su Ji's silhouette could no longer stay in the silver light. When he was about to fly out, his whole body suddenly expanded. Boom! An armor flew out of the silver light and landed on the silver light. Amidst the vibrating sound, the 10,000-foot figure slowly shrank again. However, Xiaohua could see clearly that on Su Ji's shrunken silver body, layers of grayish-black light fell and turned into nothingness. Wisps of faint fishy smell also drifted over from afar and rushed into Xiaohua's mouth and nose. Even Su Ji's immortal spiritual pressure felt weak when it landed on Xiaohua's body. It was far less powerful than before. What's going on? Xiaohua was a little surprised and looked at Su Ji in a daze. However, at this time, Su Ji didn't pay attention to Xiaohua. Instead, he looked up at the gradually shrinking and disappearing light pillar with a focused expression. Xiaohua looked at this unyielding man and didn't dare to ask. He just quietly accompanied Fairy Xingyu and watched her return to the immortal world. Chapter 45-52. Seeing Fairy Xingyu fall into the crack of the immortal realm, the brilliance of the immortal mark flashed. There was no resistance from the law of the realm. Su Ji felt relieved. He turned around and said to Xiaohua without hesitation, "Let's go." "Yes, Senior." Xiaohua sighed in his heart, but he still asked, "Senior, what is the Holy Lotus Seed?" "The Holy Lotus Seed is something from the Buddhist kingdom," Su Ji explained. Unfortunately, before he could finish speaking, a thunderous voice rang out behind him. "Su Ji, you dare to lie to me?" Xiaohua was shocked. Wasn't this voice Fairy Xingyu? He hurriedly turned his head, but the instant he did so, an extremely loud bang rang out from the starry sky. Then, an irresistible power of the world descended from above. Xiaohua felt the entire starry sky tremble violently, and the tremendous power mercilessly landed on his back. He watched as the starry sky before his eyes swayed and fell. Tens of thousands of rays of light were annihilated, and his body plummeted rapidly like a falling rock. "Xingyu, what are you doing?" Su Ji's furious voice rang in Xiaohua's ears again, but it was soon covered by the huge whistling wind. In just a few breaths, Xiaohua's body became light and the entire space stabilized. When Xiaohua looked around, wasn't he in front of the starry sky from before? "Su Ji." Fairy Xingyu's voice rang out very gently. "You've already experienced the third decay of immortals. How can I return to the immortal realm with peace of mind? You've been with me for so many years. Why don't you let me accompany you for a few more years?" Su Ji said 2 words, but he couldn't say anything else. Xiaohua turned his head and saw that Fairy Xingyu had returned. At this time, her body was shrouded by a layer of star gauze, and she had turned into the same size as Su Ji. Her appearance was the same as Su Ji's, so he couldn't see it. However, their hands were tightly clasped together, and their hearts were much closer than before. Su Ji looked at Fairy Xingyu and didn't speak for a long time. After a long while, he said, "Why do you have to do this? If it weren't for you back then, I would have turned into a pile of bones." Fairy Xingyu replied faintly, "All these years, if it weren't for your company, I would have been possessed by the devil. Your heart. I couldn't guess it at first, and I didn't dare to point it out. I was afraid that my thoughts would be different from yours. Now that you and I are of one mind, why can't we fly without the wings of the colorful phoenix? If you can return to the immortal realm, then I'll have hope as well. Now that you've returned, the crack in the immortal realm has disappeared. I hope." Su Ji sighed. Unfortunately, before Su Ji could finish, Fairy Xingyu raised her hand to cover his mouth and whispered, "Don't lie to me. Your immortal's third decay is already very serious. You probably won't have the chance, nor will you be able to occupy another human body. You don't have much time left. If I return to the immortal world, how will I be able to see you again?" Sigh. Su Ji said regretfully, "In the end, I didn't harden my heart." Naturally, Fairy Xingyu had noticed that Su Ji's immortal spirit body was different because she had kissed him on the lips. Therefore, she smiled and said, "That's because I'm charming. Moreover, if it weren't for that kiss, wouldn't I have regretted it for the rest of my life?" Su Ji, who had no psychological burden, was obviously more talkative. He said with a smile, "Now I'm the one who will regret it for the rest of my life." "Humph, I'm with you. What do you have to regret?" Fairy Xingyu rebuked, "Why aren't you leaving? If you're any slower, I'll also regret it for the rest of my life." Su Ji was a little puzzled. "Naturally, to other starry skies." Fairy Xingyu replied, "Since there are cracks in the immortal realm in this starry sky, maybe other starry skies also have rare treasures from the immortal realm. If you and I are fated, We may be able to find something similar to the holy lotus seed. Su Ji thought for a moment and nodded. You're right. Although we know where those starry skies are, we rarely go to check them out. Maybe there will be some surprises waiting for us. The most important thing is... Fairy Xingyu tightened her grip on Su Ji's hand and said, My happiness lies in these starry skies. At this point, Fairy Xingyu looked at Xiaohua and said, Xiaohua, are you willing to help us? Of course. Xiaohua nodded firmly. I'm honored to witness the love between two immortals. Let's go. Fairy Xingyu and Su Ji urged their figures and flew toward the starry skies not far away. Xiaohua followed the two immortals. The smell of blood drifted past his nose and mouth. Even if he closed his mouth and nose, he could still smell it. Xiaohua felt a little sour in his heart. Even someone as strong as Su Ji, a law enforcer of the immortal realm, would have his third decay. Life and death were everywhere in this world. However, at the same time, he was extremely gratified. If he could smell the blood from so far away, what about Fairy Xingyu? Su Ji's beloved was like this. Even if he died, his heart would not be broken. The starry skies next to them was still a starry skies maze. In the face of Xiaohua's terrifying sense of direction in the void, even an immortal would have to admit defeat. Xiaohua did not spend too much effort to break the starry skies maze. What appeared in front of Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu was an array that flickered with many rays of light. However, Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu did not hesitate. They each reached into Silverlight's chest and took out two cracked tiger talismans. These tiger talismans were even stranger. One was large and the other was small. Moreover, there was a token arrow piercing through the abdomen of the tiger talisman. When the two of them breathed out immortal chi, the two tiger talismans glowed with silver light and turned into the shape of a dragon and a tiger. When the two tiger talismans rushed into the array, the entire starry sky was strangely divided into two from the middle. What was beyond the starry sky made Xiaohua's jaw drop. It was a palace that looked like a hall. This palace was so big that it was as wide as heaven and earth. Xiaohua's divine thought could not see the end. Fairy Xingyu spread her divine thought and then raised her hand. A palm-sized key fell into her hand. Let's go! Fairy Xingyu originally wanted to take the key, but when she looked at the empty palace, her interest waned. She said this and was about to throw the key away. Xiaohua hurriedly shouted, Senior, leave this to me. Well, take it, you little miser. Fairy Xingyu did not ask any more questions and casually threw the key to Xiaohua. Xiaohua caught the key. Before he could take a look, the surrounding starry skies surged out again like a tide and pushed them out. Then, Xiaohua followed Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu to 4 starry skies that sealed off their divine thoughts. Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu were not prepared and could not enter one of them, but they could enter the other 3 starry skies. The situation in the starry skies was different, and the items obtained were also different. One was a thumb-sized crystal-like object, another was a small halberd, and the last was a token. Although the 3 items had extraordinary origins and even Fairy Xingyu could not tell the reason, she was concerned about Su Ji at this moment. Everything in her eyes was like dung. Without waiting for Xiaohua to speak, she gave them all to him. Xiaohua also took them without saying anything and directly sent them into the space. As Xiaohua had expected, these items did not fall into the Shenhua continent. Instead, they fell into different spaces. The crystal-like object even fell into the spiritual realm. When they came out of the last starry sky, Fairy Xingyu casually pointed to a starry sky and said, Let's go there. Yes, Senior. Xiaohua responded and was about to fly up. However, Fairy Xingyu said indifferently, There is no need to break the array here. This. Xiaohua was stunned. He had a bad feeling in his heart. Seeing Fairy Xingyu take Su Ji's hand and rush into the starry sky, Xiaohua slowly followed behind them. Sure enough, there was no array or door in the starry sky. There was only a sky full of stars, like eyes looking at Xiaohua with ridicule. Xiaohua sighed and thought to himself, The Star Moon Palace is a mysterious ancient divine object. There are endless secrets in it. Even this resplendent starry sky has many secrets. There might be the holy lotus seed that Su Ji needs. However, powerful immortals like Su Ji and Fairy Xingyue could only find out so much after so many years. Sometimes, human strength is limited. This is indeed the case. Presumably, they have no more hope. Xiaohua did not dare to say more. He stood quietly in the starry sky. In the distance, the two silver figures were snuggling together. There was no longer the majesty of the supreme divine powers of the three continents. What was left was only sweetness and desolation. After a few minutes, Fairy Xingyu, who was curled up in Su Ji's arms, suddenly raised her head and said stubbornly, "I can't give up like this. Su Ji, let's rush over the platform and go to the hall. The starry sky, there is a corner of the immortal realm. There might be some opportunities." "No need." Su Ji shook his head and said, "We have not been able to gather the required credentials for that forbidden area for tens of thousands of years. Even if we get there, we can't go in. No, if we don't go and take a look, I really can't accept it." Fairy Xingyu was equally determined. "All right then." Su Ji could not resist Fairy Xingyu. He turned to Xiaohua and said, "Xiaohua, after the platform is a place that we explored for the second time. There are a lot of credentials there. We have not been able to gather them, so we never went there again. It is very dangerous after the platform. The extremely mysterious thunder I told you about before is behind the platform. This thunder is even more difficult to guard against than the forbidden array of the ghost plane. We still have some resistance, but none of the cultivators of the three continents can resist it. You don't have to go there. Stay here and meditate on the starry sky maze. When the Star Moon Palace is closed, the power of the stars and the moon will naturally send you out of the Star Moon Palace." Chapter 45-53. Senior. Xiaohua looked at Fairy Xingyu beside him and asked very sincerely, "Can you tell this junior the truth? As long as it doesn't involve the immortal realm." Su Ji answered seriously. Unfortunately, before Su Ji could finish, Xiaohua interrupted him with tears in his eyes and said, "I just want to ask, can you hold on until the Star Moon Palace closes? Can I still see you in the three continents?" Su Ji hesitated and said, "Xiaohua, these words are meaningless now. I hope that the next time the Star Moon Palace opens, you can help Xingyue and send her back to the immortal realm." Xiaohua's heart was suddenly wet. He nodded and said, "Senior, please don't worry. I'd rather not ascend and wait until the Star Moon Palace reappears. Also, I promise you that I'll definitely find a thunder cultivator with the same cultivation as me. We'll definitely help Fairy Xingyu return to the immortal realm." "Good, then I'm relieved." Su Ji nodded and said with a smile, "I really didn't expect to meet a little friend like you here. Your temperament makes me think of many things and I'm very pleased. If fate wills it, we'll meet again." "Senior, there's no need to say goodbye now." Xiaohua bit his lip and said, "I also want to accompany you on your journey. I wonder if you're willing to guide me?" "Sai, why do you have to do this?" Su Ji was a little helpless. He looked at Fairy Xingyu and hoped that she would persuade Xiaohua. Fairy Xingyu also sighed and said, "Su Ji, it's rare for Xiaohua to have such good intentions. Let him go. Otherwise, he'll feel terrible. Moreover, with us around, the thunder on the platform may not cause any harm to him." But Su Ji nodded and flew out of the starry sky with Fairy Xingyu toward another part of the starry sky. Just like when they entered the starry sky, it was another seemingly endless starry sky. After flying for a while, they rushed out of the starry sky and saw a greenish-white platform in front of them. It was much clearer than what Xiaohua had seen earlier. "Xiaohua," Su Ji reminded him, "don't go too far from our silver light. If you feel anything wrong, run away immediately." "Yes, senior." Xiaohua nodded his head vigorously. This reminder reminded him of his master helplessness. At first, he was dissatisfied with helplessness's attitude, but now that he had a disciple, he understood helplessness's painstaking efforts. Unfortunately, when helplessness self-destructed in the end, Xiaohua realized that everything was already too late. Now that he'd met such a good teacher and friend like Su Ji, how could he not cherish the last moments he had with Su Ji? The platform was very calm. There was no danger as Su Ji had described. Not to mention the sound of thunder, there was not even the sound of wind. Swoosh! Just when the three of them were carefully flying towards the back of the platform, the sound of flowing sand was suddenly heard from the greenish-white far away. Su Ji and the others stopped and turned around to look. On the other side of the platform, nearly 20 great demons of the demon clan were flying close to the platform. Most of the 20 great demons were at the sun-devouring realm. Among them, there were actually 2 demon kings at the Na Tian realm. When the great demons saw Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu, they were all stunned. The immortal realm pressure from the power of the stars and moon was almost suffocating. "Why are you all here?" Xiaohua flew up and asked with a frown. "This is not a place where you can come." "Greetings, senior." When the great demons saw Xiaohua fly out, they seemed to understand something. In the face of a grand ascension stage human, they didn't dare to be negligent and bowed respectfully. "Get up." Xiaohua pointed to the resplendent sea of stars in the distance and said, "That is the resplendent sea of stars. There is some strange extraterritorial star force that is extremely beneficial to demon cultivators like you. If possible, you all can go there to cultivate." "Senior," Demon King Na Tian said bluntly, "I feel that the star force is not helpful for us to break through, so we want to go to this mysterious thunder formation to try our luck. The cultivation of the demon clan is very different from that of the human clan." "Senior, I'm afraid you don't understand." Fine. Fairy Xingyu said with a smile, "Since you all want to go, go ahead." "Yes, senior," the Demon King responded. He looked around and flapped his wings slightly. The group of demons followed the Demon King and carefully flew away from the side. Alas! Su Ji sighed. There are always people who don't believe what others say and think they are different from others. I'm afraid they will only wake up when they are on the verge of death. "Senior, why do you sound like me?" Xiaohua touched his nose and said in a low voice. "That's right. You're also the kind of person who won't give up until you hit the wall." Fairy Xingyu said bluntly. Then she hit the nail on the head and said, "You are lucky. Otherwise, you would have turned into ashes." Soon after, the 3 of them flew forward again. Although the platform looked very wide, when they really flew, Xiaohua discovered that the space of the platform seemed to be like a valley. When they flew to either side, there would always be an inexplicable tilting force that subtly affected the direction of their flight. After a short while, they would fly back to the center of the platform, unable to go far. Therefore, although the 20 or so great demons didn't want to fly together with Su Ji and the others, after flying for a while, they were still in front of Su Ji and the others. "Be careful," Su Ji hurriedly reminded them in a low voice when he saw the faint outline of the green and white area in front of them. "The time it takes to drink a cup of tea is the most dangerous. If the thunder restriction is not triggered, we will be safe." Unfortunately, before Su Ji could finish his words, a rumbling sound came from high up in the sky. "Be careful!" Su Ji was shocked and hurriedly pulled Fairy Xingyu back. However, whether it was Su Ji or Fairy Xingyu, the silver light around them flickered rapidly, like a candle in the wind, flickering unsteadily. Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu could naturally react, but the great demons in front of them couldn't. As the thunder passed, the bodies of the 3 great demons flashed with starlight, and then they expanded sharply. Bang, bang, bang. Their bodies exploded, and the broken demonic beasts also disappeared into nothingness in the thunder. When they looked at Xiaohua again, the sound of thunder was like the whole platform falling down and smashing straight into his mind. However, as soon as this violent impact fell into Xiaohua's body, the Hongmeng immortal qi in his lower dantian was stimulated with a boom, covering the scattered nascent souls and more than 100 of them. Moreover, the truth of heaven and earth in the Hongmeng immortal qi also turned into waves that flowed rapidly in Xiaohua's body. Not only that, but the crystal-like Godhead hidden in Xiaohua's sea of consciousness also inexplicably revealed itself. When the violent impact landed on Xiaohua's body, It actually turned into a peculiar fluctuation that rushed into the scenery-like godhead. As the scenery-like godhead shone with a wrinkled luster, Xiaohua actually heard cryptic and indescribable voices in his ears. This voice sounds like the magical power used by devouring heaven and the others on the primitive continent. Xiaohua was stunned and hurriedly activated his secret technique. Sure enough, the voice sounded in Xiaohua's mind again. Xiaohua. Seeing the golden light flashing around Xiaohua and him standing there motionless as if he was possessed, Su Ji became anxious. He raised his hand and grabbed, trying to pull Xiaohua away. However, as soon as his big silver hand touched the golden light around Xiaohua, it immediately collapsed. Su Ji was shocked because he could clearly feel that there was a power in Xiaohua's golden light that was beyond his reach. It was this power that had defeated his big hand. However, when Su Ji's big silver hand collapsed, the sound of thunder had turned into a lingering sound and gradually dissipated. Let's go! Without waiting for Su Ji to ask more, Fairy Xingyu urged again. The two of them flashed and flew forward. However, they didn't dare to teleport because they had also encountered the law of time and knew that speed was limited here. Xiaohua was a little regretful because he didn't finish listening to that sentence. When Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu flew past, Xiaohua hurriedly rushed into the depths of the platform. To Xiaohua's surprise, the group of great demons didn't show any fear after losing 3 of their great demons. They still accelerated their flying speed and rushed inside like Su Ji and the others. Seeing the light and shadow of a tower-like pavilion appear in the distance of the bluish-white platform, Su Ji hurriedly sent a voice transmission. Xiaohua, when we reach that pavilion, we will be out of the range of the thunder restriction. We will be safe. Fairy Xingyu smiled bitterly and said, I'm afraid it's not that simple. Sure enough, before Fairy Xingyu could finish speaking, rumbling sounds could be heard. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Thunderclaps fell from the sky like drums. This thunderbolt was different from the previous one. As soon as it fell into Xiaohua's ears, it turned into an indescribable wave. This wave rushed into Xiaohua's body, internal organs, lower dantian, and other parts of his body, giving birth to all kinds of inexplicable law of space. Xiaohua felt that his body was expanding like countless spaces, and he couldn't control them at all. However, when this wave fell into his lower dantian and rushed into the crystal-like godhead, it also triggered the truth of heaven and earth in the Hongmeng purple vapor and the divine power in the crystal-like godhead. Under this mysterious power, the countless new spaces in Xiaohua's body expanded again and again. Then, they turned into words that fell into Xiaohua's heart. If there is a law in the human world, then the law is untraceable. If there is a law in the immortal world, then the law is unsystematic. If there is a Dao, then the Dao cannot be named. This voice was obviously different from the previous one, but every word carried an indescribable mystery. It was as if every word was a world and every word was a thunderbolt. Whoosh! The silver light around Fairy Xingyu and Su Ji was torn apart. The two of them had no time to care about Xiaohua now. They fled in a sorry state and looked at the group of great demons. Bang bang bang. Bang bang bang. Without any suspense, even the demon king Na Tian turned into nothingness in this thunderbolt that contained the truth of heaven and earth and contained the law of space. Chapter 45-54. If people have laws, then laws will be untraceable. If immortals have laws, then laws will be unsystematic. If gods have Tao, then Tao cannot be named. Although Xiaohua could not understand, he understood that laws could not be passed on. Not everyone who could hear the laws could understand the laws. Those who were not fated to hear the laws would be punished by God even if they heard the laws. Xiaohua still wanted to listen attentively, but after a burst of thunder, there was no more sound. Fairy Xingyu's tentative voice came again. Xiaohua, you're fine? Let's go. Xiaohua could not explain his strangeness, so he could only change the topic. Let's go to that pavilion first. Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu suppressed their astonishment and followed Xiaohua to the outline of the pavilion. Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu were very glad, but Xiaohua was disappointed. After flying over the platform, there was no more thunder. In front of them was the outline of half of the broken pavilion. After being killed by the mysterious thunder, the silver light around Su Ji began to turn gray and rusty, almost covering the whole light and shadow. Pieces of gray and silver light turned into fragments and fell, and the fishy smell now turned into the smell of decay. Go in from here. Without waiting for Xiaohua to speak, Fairy Xingyu raised her hand and pointed. Her entire right hand left her body and landed on a part of the silhouette. The silver light made a sizzling sound and turned into a very complicated pattern of a palace door in the darkness of the huge silhouette. Puff! Fairy Xingyu spat out a mouthful of immortal spirit qi. The door of the palace with only a pattern opened, and a primitive aura fell from inside. Of course, the situation inside the palace could not be seen clearly from outside the door. However, when Xiaohua flew in with Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu, it was an eye-opener for him, because there was a huge starry sky above the palace. This starry sky was different from before. It was not densely covered with stars. Instead, there were 12 groups of stars that formed a strange star formation above the starry sky. Xiaohua could not understand these star formations. He asked in confusion, "Senior, is this the star map of your immortal world?" "That's right." Fairy Xingyu nodded and said, "There is a starry sky in the immortal world like this. Our Palace of Justice calls it the 12 earthly branches star array." Su Ji took out 7 strange tokens from his bosom and explained with a strange tone, "In my hometown, there are 12 zodiac signs. They are Zi Shu, Chou Ox, Yin Hu, Mao Rabbit, Chen Long, Sea Snake, Wu Ma, Wei Yang, Shen Monkey, Yu Rooster, Su Dog, and Hai Pig. They also saw the 12 earthly branches as the 12 commonly seen animals. Look, doesn't that star array look like a rat? Doesn't that star array look like a cow?" As he spoke, Su Ji raised his hand and waved, causing 7 tokens to fly into the air. They were the rat head token, dragon head token, horse head token, sheep head token, monkey head token, chicken head token, and dog head token. Then he explained in a desolate manner, "After Xingyu and I saw the 12 earthly branches star array for the second time, we deliberately searched for these tokens in the 3 continents. However, with our limited strength, Xingyu and I were only able to find these 7 tokens. We couldn't find any of the other 5 tokens, so, although we know that this place may be related to the immortal realm, we can't do anything about it." Looking at the 7 tokens, Xiaohua smiled, and a string of tears of happiness couldn't help but flow down. He said in a low voice, "Senior, if you can find all 12 tokens, then it'll be strange." But Su Ji was slightly stunned. Seeing the tears in the corners of Xiaohua's eyes, Fairy Xingyu suddenly understood and exclaimed, "I understand. Those tokens are from the Dawn Rain continent." "Yes, that's right." Xiaohua. Seeing that Fairy Xingyu had lost her composure, Xiaohua did not dare to delay any longer. He raised his hand and took out the tiger head token, the ox head token and the pig head token, the snake head token, and the rabbit head token from the mysterious water palace in the Pure Land world. He also took out the tiger head token, the ox head token, and the pig head token, which he had obtained from the demonic beast storage ring on Sunset Island. How is this possible? Su Ji could not help but be stunned. Could it be that my divination skill is really? That's right. Xiaohua nodded vigorously. "Senior, don't worry. There must be the holy lotus seed you need behind the star array of the 12 zodiac signs. But the passage to the immortal realm." Su Ji was puzzled. "Su Ji," Fairy Xingyu said with a smile, "as long as you are here, the immortal realm is everywhere. Your divination skill is correct." Good. Su Ji was also overjoyed. At this time, he no longer had the strength to activate the zodiac token. He responded and looked at Fairy Xingyu. Fairy Xingyu opened her mouth and a mouthful of immortal qi fell on the rat head token. The rat head token suddenly expanded. Fairy Xingyu raised her hand and pointed at it. The token flew under a star array. When the token approached, All the stars on the star array emitted starlight and fell into the token. The starlight on the token shone brightly and turned into a lifelike rat that rushed into the star array. Boom! The starry sky shook and the star array tumbled. A moment later, a white jade box engraved with a rat pattern flew out of the star array. Fairy Xingyu hurriedly waved her hand and the jade box fell into her hand. She carefully opened it and glanced at it. She could not help but feel a little disappointed and handed it to Su Ji. Su Ji glanced at it and frowned. He then handed it to Xiaohua. Xiaohua took it and saw that it was a strange object the size of a palm. It looked like a starfish, but there were some strange fine lines on the inside. Layers of indescribable waves were generated between these fine lines. Before Xiaohua could speak, Fairy Xingyu activated the bullhead token again. The second star array was opened and there was another jade box inside. Fairy Xingyu looked at it and gave it to Su Ji, who handed it to Xiaohua. Xiaohua glanced at it and put it into the space like the first jade box. However, it was very strange. These two jade boxes had landed in different spaces, and neither of them was on Shunhua continent. In the time it took to smoke a cigarette, Fairy Xingyu opened all 11 star arrays. A jade box flew out from each star array, and each jade box was placed in a different space by Xiaohua. There were even some spaces that had yet to take shape. Finally, Fairy Xingyu stood in front of the last star array and looked at the last dog head token hesitantly. Su Ji smiled and said, "The previous jade boxes were either the Buddhist Kingdom's medicine, the Heavenly Court's gold core, or the Demon League's star scorch. This last one should be the immortal elixir of our Dao sect, right?" "It should be the immortal elixir of Dao sect," Fairy Xingyu said with certainty. "But it might not be the holy lotus seed of Dao sect." "Senior." Xiaohua was confused when he heard Fairy Xingyu's words. He hurriedly asked, "Didn't you say that the holy lotus seed was an item of the Buddhist kingdom? How did it become an immortal elixir of our Dao sect?" "Who told you that the holy lotus seed was an item of the Buddhist kingdom?" Fairy Xingyu glared at Xiaohua and said, "The holy lotus seed is an immortal elixir refined by a Dao sect pharmacist in the immortal world with the help of the lotus seeds from the lotus pond in the Buddhist kingdom." Unfortunately, Fairy Xingyu's eyes were blocked by the silver light, so Xiaohua could not see it. Xiaohua was helpless when he heard this. After all, Su Ji had only told him half of the story. "Open it," Su Ji said faintly. "The jade boxes are already behind the starry sky. It doesn't matter if it's the holy lotus seed or not. It's a fact." But just like before, Fairy Xingyu sent the dog head token into the star array. Sure enough, another jade box flew out. This time, after Fairy Xingyu took it, she did not dare to open it. It flew to Su Ji and carefully handed it over. However, she did not let go of it. At this moment, a faint golden light appeared above the starry sky, and a strange aura faintly discernible descended. However, just as this aura appeared, the golden light disappeared. Xiaohua only had time to raise his head to take a look before the aura also disappeared. However, Xiaohua did not have time to pay attention to the aura at this time. He also looked at Su Ji and Fairy Xingyu. Su Ji looked at Fairy Xingyu. The two of them each took one side of the jade box and gently opened the jade box. Looking at the contents of the jade box, the two of them did not speak for a long time. Xiaohua could not see their expressions and was a little anxious. However, he also had a bad feeling in his heart. If the holy lotus seed was inside the jade box, how could Fairy Xingyu let Su Ji look at it like this? She would have let him take it long ago. Sob, sob. Fairy Xingyu seemed to have been too hopeful. Now that she was disappointed, she actually sobbed softly. Su Ji sighed slightly and raised his hand to pull Fairy Xingyu into his arms. He wanted to say something, but he couldn't. He only patted Fairy Xingyu's back. After a while, Fairy Xingyu raised her head from Su Ji's arms and said, "Su Ji, is our luck really that bad? After so many years of searching for the Star Moon Palace, it was all in vain in the end? With you, how could it be all in vain?" Su Ji replied. "Alas." Fairy Xingyu sighed. Looking at the jade box in Su Ji's hand, she said, This clear feather elixir has benefited Xiaohua again. Ha, Xiaohua's luck is better than ours. Su Ji said and handed the jade box to Xiaohua. Xiaohua, this is the clear feather elixir used by the mortal fairies in the immortal world. Your strength is now only at the middle of the 9th level of origin power. If you want to cultivate to the upper level, it will take at most 50,000 years, at least 10,000 years. Of course, we can't rule out that you have other opportunities to shorten this time. As for this clear feather elixir, if your cultivation is stable and your realm surpasses your strength, you can take it. It will probably only take a few years for you to reach the highest realm in the 3 continents. Remember, this elixir contains the immortal spiritual chi of the immortal world. If you haven't reached the late stage of the Mahayana realm, don't take it. Oh, in addition, among the things I gave you, there is a coarse grass talisman. I refined it myself to suppress your strength. If it is not appropriate for you to take this elixir, you can use the coarse grass talisman to suppress it. Chapter 45-55. Yes, thank you, Senior. Xiaohua took the jade box and glanced at it. He was stunned for a moment before he casually stored it in his space. Sure enough, the location of the jade box was the same as the gold core that Xiaohua had obtained earlier. In addition, the things I obtained earlier were also items from the Buddhist Kingdom and the Demon League. They have similar effects as the clear feather pill. There are records of these in Xingyue's moon-embracing palace. You'll know after you take a look. Su Ji added, in the future, I hope you can help me take care of Xingyue, Su Ji. Hearing Su Ji's words, Fairy Xingyue was displeased. She interrupted Su Ji and was about to speak. Xiaohua hurriedly asked, Senior, the holy lotus seed, shut up first. Fairy Xingyue said, wait for me to finish. How could Xiaohua wait for Fairy Xingyue to finish speaking? He waved his hand and took out the mysterious gold core he had obtained in the stacked jade legacy realm. He said, Senior, take a look and see if this thing is useful. Seeing the mysterious golden pill fall into the starry sky, it immediately turned into a flame that was dozens of feet wide. On the surface of the flame, tens of thousands of tiny vortexes rapidly expanded, each becoming the size of a thumb. Moreover, these vortexes produced a powerful suction force. Strands of needle-like power of the stars and moon were sucked into these vortexes. The suction force of this pill was so strong that it was as if a giant hand had grabbed the space within 100 feet, causing it to distort intensely. Within the distorted space, mysterious runes flew out from the vortexes. These runes slowly flowed in the flame's threads, and their trajectories looked mysterious. Holy lotus seed? Fairy Xingyue screamed as if she had seen a ghost. Her voice was like thunder, shaking the entire starry sky. Fairy Xingyue's silver figure broke free from the control of the star veil and rushed out hundreds of feet in an instant. Xiaohua. Even someone as calm as Su Ji could not hide his excitement. He stuttered and asked, This holy lotus seed? Where did you get it? Fairy Xingyu, who had regained her senses, immediately emitted a silver light that soared into the sky. She recklessly shrouded the area within 1,000 feet of the holy lotus seed. She believed that if there were any changes at this time, even if Xiaohua wanted to touch the holy lotus seed, Fairy Xingyu would mercilessly deliver a fatal blow. Su Ji! Fairy Xingyu shouted. Who cares where it came from? Take it quickly. Senior. Xiaohua knew that Su Ji was a person of noble character. He definitely wouldn't eat food that was given to him for free. He bowed and said, Senior, please be at ease. This pill was obtained by Junior from the Dragon Island's training space. Its origin is clean. This is also this Junior's sincere filial piety towards you. Good, good child, good child, good child. Su Ji said good a few times, and the silver brilliance around him, which was mostly grayish-black, also soared into the sky. A fishy smell immediately filled the entire starry sky. As Su Ji's body expanded to 3,000 meters in size, layers of scattered light fragments rolled down from his body like waves. Wherever these light fragments landed, All things withered, and even space turned gray and collapsed. When Su Ji's figure landed, Xiao Hua saw that the silver light covering his head had emerged from the grayish-black color. Although the silver light was still shining, wisps of grayish-black color seeped into his head as if they were poisoned. The rust spots that had previously covered the immortal mark were now connected, like a strange beast that wanted to devour the immortal mark. Su Ji opened his mouth and a mouthful of immortal spiritual qi landed on the sacred lotus seed that had turned into flames. Woo! With a sound, half of the flames were extinguished. The runes in the flames suddenly rushed out from the immortal spiritual qi and entangled with the flames. Seeing this, Su Ji spat out another mouthful of immortal spiritual qi. Huff! This time, the flames were even weaker, and the runes emitted a silver light. Buzz! The space where the sacred lotus seed was located began to vibrate, and a light shadow shaped like a lotus seed emerged from the silver light. Su Ji didn't dare to be negligent. He formed a series of seals with his silver-gray hands, and several immortal techniques turned into thunderbolts and landed on the sacred lotus seed. Ao ao ao. In the distorted space near the sacred lotus seed, the wails of gods and ghosts were suddenly heard. Wisps of pitch-black devil chi mixed with holy Buddhist light emerged from the space and frantically poured into the sacred lotus seed's flames. Sizzle! The flames were immediately extinguished, and it turned back into the stardust-like pill that Xiao Hua had seen in the Dragon Domain's mezzanine. Huff! Su Ji opened his mouth, and a silver light fell. It was precisely the sacred lotus seed. When the sacred lotus seed entered Su Ji's mouth, an explosion sounded like a fire rune exploding. The extinguished flames reappeared on Su Ji's head, enveloping the rusty immortal mark and the grayish-black silver light on his head. Ao ao ao. In the flames, a devilish sound was heard, and devils bared their fangs and brandished their claws as they danced with the sound. Namo Amitabha Buddha, Namo Amitabha Buddha. Along with the devilish sound, there were Buddhist chants. Bursts of Sanskrit chants that sounded like the sounds of nature came from the void. Following which, heavenly flowers fell from Su Ji's head, sprinkling into the grayish-black silver light. Wherever the heavenly flowers passed, the grayish-black color was washed away, and the fragrance of the heavenly flowers diluted the stench within the silver light. Excellent! Seeing this, Xiao Hua couldn't help but smile. Rumble, rumble. The flames burned, and the rumbling sounds were endless. The same went for the Buddhist chants, and the devilish chants were unyielding. Within the flames, countless lightning bolts danced and shot down like flying swords. Rather than saying that Su Ji was consuming the sacred lotus seed, it was better to say that it was a battle between Buddha and Demon Immortal. However, after the time it took to brew a cup of tea, the lights and shadows continued to flicker, and the rumbling sounds continued. However, the flames were still on Su Ji's head and did not spread down. On Su Ji's body, the grayish-black color was still deepening, and fragments of light continued to fall. Although Xiao Hua didn't understand, he could clearly see that Su Ji's body was becoming fainter and fainter. Damn it! Xiao Hua suddenly understood something and cursed inwardly. This is the three continents. Although it's in Star Moon Palace, without sufficient immortal qi, the sacred lotus seed can't be used to its full potential. Moreover, Su Ji has been injured for so many years. Without the support of immortal qi, the sacred lotus seed won't be able to heal his injuries. If Su Ji's injuries aren't good, the immortal's third decay won't be able to stop it. Since Xiao Hua thought of it, Fairy Xingyu naturally thought of it as well. High in the sky, there was a clear clang. An extremely bright silver light flashed between Fairy Xingyu's eyebrows. This silver light was like a bright star, illuminating the entire starry sky. Woo! The silver light was like a star, flying out from between Fairy Xingyu's eyebrows and crashing down on Su Ji. As the silver star rushed out, Fairy Xingyu's silver body suddenly became much fainter. As the silver star fell, the space rumbled, and layers of spatial ripples rippled in the starry sky. Boom! A moment later, the silver star fell into the flames, making a loud noise. the intensity of the flames suddenly increased. In particular, the silver light swords in the flames shot out in all directions like a sword net, enveloping the space within a radius of 3,000 feet. Under the sword net, more than half of the grayish-black color was destroyed. Through the flames, Xiaohua could already see that the grayish-black spots in the immortal mark had been burned and broken. However, these spots were still struggling tenaciously in the demonic qi and howling, as if they were going to fight back. "Senior?" Xiaohua laughed heartily and put his palms together. "I'm here to help you." As he spoke, golden light burst out from Xiaohua's body, and his figure slowly grew. When he was more than 1,000 feet tall, Xiaohua chanted again, "Namo Mithriya Buddha, by my command." As Xiaohua used the seventh divine ability of the Buddhist sect's 9-syllable Sanskrit incantation, the Buddha's aura in the nearby void shone brightly. This Buddha's aura condensed into the shape of water waves, surging from all directions and pouring into the flames. Moreover, in the Buddhist light, Xiaohua secretly ordered the demon Venerable Shi to separate a wisp of demonic sense, which turned into a devil and flew in. Zzz. The 9 syllables mantra Lai was really a Buddhist purification. Xiaohua used the Buddhist power of the world-honored Buddha Maitreya to purify it. The water-like Buddhist light had already destroyed most of the demonic qi in the rust spots. The devils that were attracted by the divine lotus seed were scared away by the demon Venerable Shi's demonic sense, and those who were slow to react were devoured by the demon Venerable Shi. Seeing the grayish-black spots shrinking rapidly, Suji looked up to the sky and roared. Roar! His roar shook the whole starry sky formation. Boom! Following 3 loud roars, 3 silver light beams shot up from Suji's immortal mark, piercing into the starry sky like light swords. Then, the space where the 3 light beams landed twisted and began to collapse rapidly. As the space collapsed, strands of silver light beams shot out from the space fragments, and a strong immortal spiritual qi gushed out from the fragments. Immortal spiritual qi? Fairy Xingyu was stunned. She hurriedly released her extended thought and cried out in joy, "Suji, this is the immortal realm crack from before. How did it move here?" As Fairy Xingyu spoke, the space fragments collapsed completely. A silver light beam fell and shone on Suji. Buzz! The strong immortal spiritual qi poured into the light beam like the Milky Way, and an obvious vortex appeared above Suji's head. As the immortal spiritual qi poured in, the silver light shone brightly and the wind blew violently. The immortal mark was as bright as the sun. Although Xiaohua could not see the spots in the silver light clearly, he could see the flames spreading rapidly below Suji's body. Wherever the flames went, the grayish-black spots were immediately burned away. The extremely thin silver light was also visible to the naked eye. Xiaohua was relieved. He withdrew his Buddhist divine sense, but did not withdraw his Dharma body. He stood by the side with a smile. Chapter 45-56. The Saint Lotus Seed was indeed the Saint Lotus Seed. In the time it took to drink a cup of tea, the flames had already reached the bottom of Suji's feet. As the flames passed, a transparent, sparkling, and radiant silver shell appeared in front of Xiaohua. The threatening aura of the shell was unobstructed as it tumbled in the air. The golden light around Xiaohua was unable to resist this aura and unconsciously retreated. He was already more than 100 miles away, and under the silver light, Xiaohua's figure was still moving further away. Boom! The flame fell under Suji's feet, turned into a lotus seed, and once again swirled towards Suji's head. In just a few breaths' time, the lotus seed flame had reached Suji's immortal mark. Swoosh! All the aura and brilliance of the flame converged into the immortal mark. Boom! Another ball of aura rushed out from the immortal mark and fell into the lotus seed flame. Boom! A stream of light appeared on Suji's immortal mark again. It was obviously different from before. The moment the stream of light disappeared, the light pillar that seemed to pierce through heaven and earth slowly shrank. The crack in the starry sky began to slowly close. Suji! Seeing this, Fairy Xingyu hurriedly rushed toward the light pillar. She urged, "Quick, this is our last chance to return to the immortal realm." But Su Ji replied. He raised his hand and made a grabbing motion. Clang! The lotus flames floating above his head condensed together and turned into a silver lotus seed. Su Ji moved his body into the silver light pillar. He looked up at Xiaohua and said in a thunderous voice, "Xiaohua, my divination skills are not wrong after all. You are indeed my savior when I return to the immortal realm. To tell you the truth, when I did the divination back then, I did not believe the result. If not for the holy lotus seed, I would not have returned to the immortal realm. And the holy lotus seed could not exist in the lower realm. At that time, I even thought that you could only help Xingyue. But I really did not expect that not only did you lead us through the Starry Sky Maze and help us open the Starry Sky Gate, but you also brought us the 5 zodiac tokens and the holy lotus seed. This Saint Lotus seed not only saved my life, it also allowed me to step into the light immortal realm. Xiaohua, no words can express my gratitude for your great kindness. Whatever you say now is meaningless. Wait until you ascend to the immortal world, then we'll drink and chat merrily." On Su Ji's head, Fairy Xingyu was also very happy. She shouted, "Su Ji, congratulations on entering the light immortal realm." As she spoke, Fairy Xingyue looked at Xiaohua and said with a smile, "Xiaohua, thank you. When you fly to the celestial world, I will also pour wine for you and Su Ji." At this point, Fairy Xingyu actually transmitted her voice again. "Oh, by the way, there seems to be some things in the Moon Embracing Palace that are useful for your return to the Dawn Rain continent. Of course, whether or not you can find it is not something I can know." "What's the point of pouring wine?" Xiaohua clapped his hands and said, "You need to get drunk." "Hee hee." Fairy Xingyu covered her mouth and laughed quietly. Seeing that the two of them had flown to the edge of the crack, Su Ji raised his hand and the lotus seed condensed from flames turned into a stream of light and landed in front of Xiaohua. Su Ji transmitted his voice, "Xiaohua, this is transformed from my immortal mark. It contains my cultivation experience and imprint of my immortal mark. This is originally an item from the immortal world. I'll lend it to you temporarily to comprehend. It will be of great help to you when you ascend to the immortal world in the future. Remember, after you ascend to the immortal world, you must return it to me." Ah. Xiaohua saw that Su Ji rarely showed favoritism outside the law and even spoke vaguely. He stretched out his hand to receive the lotus seed and said, "Junior thanks Senior for your generous gift. I wish Senior's love is stronger than gold. I wish you 100 years of blissful marriage and a son soon, boom." Following Xiaohua's congratulatory words, Su Ji's immortal body shook twice and fled into the crack of the immortal world in a panic. The crack of the immortal world closed with a loud bang. The entire starry sky shook a few times and then returned to normal. Holy lotus seed, holy lotus seed. Xiaohua was really excited. The sense of accomplishment from helping someone, especially an immortal, was much stronger than what he obtained himself. Moreover, to be able to help someone who had helped him so much, not only for karma, but also for the beauty of the world, Xiaohua felt that it was worth it. He tossed the lotus seed up and down and laughed inwardly. I really didn't expect that the ancient golden core in the void of the dragon domain would have such an effect. This karma was already formed on the dragon island. Then he looked at the lotus seed again. Where his gaze fell, endless lightning flashed and countless clouds lingered inside. It looked indescribably mysterious. However, Xiaohua laughed again, I've already obtained the innate purple qi. There are countless mysteries of heaven and earth in it. Why would I need this item condensed from the immortal mark? However, if I don't accept it, how can Su Ji be at ease? Moreover, Su Ji's experience in this lotus seed is even more important. In the future, when I encounter a bottleneck, I will inevitably need it. Fine. This item will be my Fortune Gate's cornerstone treasure. With that, Xiaohua sent the lotus seed into the Shenhua continent. Strangely enough, wherever the lotus seed landed, The immortal slaying stage fragment would release lightning, attracting the lotus seed to the side. Wherever the lightning struck, the lotus seed would release boundless clouds that shrouded the immortal slaying stage. Following that, strands of clouds slowly descended from the sky above the Xianxia continent, shrouding the entire Xianxia continent. Each strand of cloud contained the aura of immortal marks. Any Fortune Gate disciple on the Xianxia continent who was fated to obtain these strands of cloud would open a door to the heavens. In the future, these disciples' futures would be immeasurable. After putting away the lotus seed, Xiaohua stretched lazily and muttered to himself, "Since entering the Star Moon Palace, I can be considered to have experienced life and death. Now, he could finally take a break. My trip to the Star Moon Palace is over." Thinking about it, this Xiao has also obtained quite a lot. Not to mention the clear feather pill that Senior Su gave to this Xiao, even the other 11 strange things are all useful. This Xiao will find a place to eat this clear feather pill first. His granny, even the Grand Mist Ancestor came to the Star Moon Palace. I feel uneasy. If it weren't for Senior Su, I definitely wouldn't have let that guy in so easily. If he dared to scheme against my fortune gate, how could I let him off so easily? Thinking of the place where he had taken the clear feather pill, Xiaohua naturally thought of the starry sky. He raised his eyes and looked at the starry sky. The 12 star arrays where the 12 zodiac tokens had landed had already disappeared. Now, the entire starry sky was empty, and there were no stars flashing. Xiaohua did not even think about it. He urged his body to descend. However, Xiaohua was stunned on the spot after descending for 1,000 zhang. He stopped and raised his head to look at the sky. He rubbed his chin and thought to himself, the 12 zodiac tokens broke the 12 star arrays, and 12 jade boxes flew out from the star arrays. If the star arrays are completely broken, the starry sky will return to its original state, right? Not to mention, after the last jade box flew out, there was a mysterious aura in the space. Although that aura disappeared in a flash, it felt familiar to me. However, at that time, I was only focused on checking if there was a holy lotus seed inside the jade box. Moreover, the entire space was torn apart by the immortal world's crack, and that aura disappeared. Could it be that there is something strange in this space? Could it be that these 12 star arrays are just a cover? Thinking of this, Xiaohua's eyes shone brightly. He rushed into the space and released his divine sense to explore inch by inch. Unfortunately, Xiaohua didn't find anything even after looking for half an hour. Because the space was like the vault of heaven, unreachable and boundless, Xiaohua's divine sense couldn't reach it. The 12 star arrays were empty, no different from the void. Could it be that I was wrong? Xiaohua frowned, or my feeling just now was wrong? A moment later, Xiaohua opened his delusion breaker Dharma eye and scanned his surroundings. At this time, Xiaohua's eyes were blurred. Bursts of stinging pain were transmitted to his mind from his eyes and into the mysterious dark clouds. Xiaohua couldn't bear it. However, in his blurry eyes, except for the place where the golden light flashed and some fine-time lines, the other places were completely the outline of a palace. There was nothing special. Seeing this, Xiaohua didn't hesitate to teleport straight to the golden light. Unfortunately, this space was really strange. Teleportation seemed to be inferior to flying. After half an hour, Xiaohua arrived at the place where the golden light flashed. Xiaohua looked at his position and then looked around. A smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. The place where the golden light came from was a space covered by fine time lines. At this time, it was no different from the surrounding space. Xiaohua also tried Yuan Shun, soul consciousness, Buddhist consciousness, divine sense, and even the clear eye technique, but he couldn't see anything strange. Moreover, this space was only a few dozen miles in size. It was almost a drop in the ocean in the entire seemingly boundless space. He didn't know if Fairy Xingyu had the Dharma eye technique, but he believed that, other than Fairy Xingyu, among all the humans and demons who could enter the Star Moon Palace, he was probably the only one who could find the place where the golden light came from. Here, Xiaohua opened his Dharma eye again. Through the fine time lines, The other space that overlapped with this space was also vaguely revealed. The interior of the space was pitch black, and nothing could be seen clearly. However, there seemed to be a huge object covering the entire space. Damn it, what is it? Xiaohua closed his Dharma eye and rolled his eyes. What kind of aura makes me feel a sense of familiarity? Now that the 12 zodiac tokens are gone, how can this aura leak out? This is the law of time. It's not something I can break. Chapter 45-57. Thinking of this, Xiaohua showed a trace of hesitation. After a while, he narrowed his eyes and thought to himself, looks like I can only try this divine ability. I just don't know if this divine ability is effective against the law of time. After waiting for the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, Xiaohua once again opened his delusion breaker Dharma eye. Silver light flashed within the Dharma eye, and a beam of silver light shot out from the Dharma eye and fell into the void. Open! Xiaohua roared angrily. The void started to spin under the light beam, forming a whirlpool several feet in size. Then, spatial cracks appeared in the whirlpool. Unfortunately, outside the spatial cracks, inexplicable starlight appeared. Neither the golden light nor the aura appeared. Xiaohua's plan to use the law of space to break the law of time was going to fail. Break! Xiaohua roared again. His entire law eye, which seemed to be staking everything on a single throw, emitted an intense dark green brilliance. That silver beam of light also doubled in size in an instant, emitting a trembling sound. The void vortex below the beam of light suddenly deepened, and then a faint golden light flashed out with a schwa sound, followed by a wisp of aura rushing out from the vortex. However, the golden light and aura both flashed and disappeared. When the golden light appeared, the delusion breaker Dharma eye was in severe pain. Xiaohua could no longer hold on and hurriedly closed his Dharma eye. A layer of black luster rapidly appeared between his eyebrows. Ah! Xiaohua cried out involuntarily. The surprise in his voice far exceeded the pain of the Dharma eye. Isn't this the aura of the 10,000 extinguishing heavenly dipper? As he spoke, Xiaohua raised his hand and took out the 10,000 extinguishing heavenly dipper from the space where Daoist Master Yun was. Sure enough, when the 10,000 extinguishing heavenly dipper appeared, the aura rushed toward the void. Layers of space collapsed, but nothing else appeared after the space collapsed. I understand now. Surprised, Xiaohua restrained his emotions and pondered, the law of time must be the fragment of the 10,000 extinguishing heavenly dipper. So, I can feel the familiar aura from a different space. But the fragment is in another space. How can I break through the shackles of time? Speaking of Xiaohua's ability to break through the shackles of time, it was naturally the lightning evasion. Previously, Xiaohua had already tried pushing his lightning evasion to its limits in the beast enclosure and Mount Fubo. However, he was still a hair's breadth away from breaking through the timelines, and this hair's breadth should be an intrinsic difference. How could Xiaohua possibly break through it? Perhaps it wouldn't have worked before. A complacent smile appeared on Xiaohua's face. With a wave of his hand, a jade box appeared in his hand. This Xiao's magic power doesn't seem to be enough to support the lightning escape to surpass the fine lines of time. However, this Xiao now has the clear feather pill. Senior Su had made it clear that consuming this item required one's cultivation realm and a firm Dao heart. When I was fighting with Bei Xian, I had already fused all of my previous accumulations. Now that I lack time, this clear feather pill is naturally the best choice. And now, this Xiao wants to rely on magic power to activate the lightning escape technique to compete with the laws of time. Isn't this the same as using the medicinal effects of the clear feather pill? Wouldn't he be able to use the law of time to eliminate the hidden dangers of the clear feather pill? This Xiao is a genius. This is a way to kill two birds with one stone. Thinking of this, Xiaohua took out the clear feather pill from the jade box and placed it in his mouth. He held the 10,000 extinguishing heavenly dipper in his right hand and activated his magic power. Suddenly, lightning appeared on the surface of his body. Xiaohua's figure moved, charging straight into the void in front of him. Lightning flashed around Xiao Hua's body, illuminating the surrounding space. At the same time this lightning flashed, space-time resistance immediately appeared. It was as if a surging wave was surging from all directions, annihilating Xiao Hua's entire body. There was no difference from before. Soon, Xiao Hua's body began to slowly move. 4 layers of shadows appeared. Immediately after, Xiao Hua's body turned into 1,000 feet of lightning. Moreover, the lightning became illusory, twisted, and broke into dozens of pieces. At the same time, the rumbling sound of thunder was also elongated, gradually penetrating deep into the void. The lightning suddenly trembled. Within the lightning, Xiao Hua's body turned into 132 million illusory dots. These dots of light rapidly flew back and forth and gradually merged into the void. When only 30% of the illusory dots remained, Xiao Hua felt that his body was empty. All of the illusory dots began to tremble violently. Xiao Hua didn't hesitate to flip his tongue. The clear feather pill turned into spiritual liquid and fell into his body. Boom! The clear feather pill that fell into Xiao Hua's body was different from ordinary pills. Waves of incomparably powerful medicinal effects were born from the medicinal liquid. Like a surging tide, they rushed into every part of Xiao Hua's body. Xiao Hua didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly urged his cultivation method to refine the medicinal effects. The clear feather pill was really overbearing. Not only did the refined true essence contain immortal spiritual energy, but it also contained the mysteries of heaven and earth. This true essence entered Xiao Hua's meridians and pushed Xiao Hua's cultivation to the late stage of the Mahayana realm. On the other hand, it entered the scattered nascent soul, causing the scattered nascent soul to rapidly expand. Bursts of tiny purple lightning appeared in the void and tore the already extremely distorted void into pieces. Moreover, a powerful pressure was emitted from these lightning threads and spread in all directions. As Xiao Hua's cultivation increased, this pressure also rose steadily. Looking at the 30% of illusory dots that hadn't merged into the void, they shook and formed shadows. The shadows were very slow, but they were very stable. When the shadows formed 9 layers, the sound of wind whistling began to emerge from the shadows. The remaining illusory dots also began to gradually merge into the void. After a while, Xiao Hua suddenly felt that the void around him began to change. The more he urged the lightning escape technique, the slower his flying speed became. Everything around him also began to slow down. Xiao Hua felt happy in his heart. He understood that he was already close to breaking through the shackles of time. Therefore, he accelerated the refining of the clear feather pill's medicinal effects. At this time, Xiao Hua's starry sky nascent soul once again turned into a nebula. Strands of tiny lightning threads mixed with immortal spiritual energy flashed between these nebulas. The grand mist purple chi also had tiny cloud threads that slowly merged into the nebula. Unfortunately, Xiao Hua was just a cultivator of the mortal realm. He hadn't even fully grasped the laws of space, so how could he break through the shackles of time? In the end, seeing that the clear feather pill's medicinal effects had been refined, Xiao Hua still had half of the illusory dots that hadn't completely merged into the void. On that day, the void around Xiao Hua also didn't completely stop. Damn it! Xiao Hua felt the illusory dots shake again. His body was about to break free from the void. He couldn't help but curse. He knew that he was going to fail again today. At this time, the 10,000 extinguishing heavenly dipper in Xiao Hua's right hand suddenly trembled. It emitted an intense golden light. Where the golden light landed, the void began to turn transparent. In front of Xiao Hua's eyes, the originally impossible to see timelines suddenly appeared. These timelines contained endless profound meanings. Previously, when Xiao Hua was comprehending the fragments of time in the heavenly prison, he couldn't see these profound meanings. When the timelines appeared, Xiao Hua's surroundings became deathly silent. It was as if everything in the world had stopped. Even Xiao Hua himself seemed to be unable to move. In the instant that the world fell silent, the golden light of the 10,000 extinguishing celestial dipper rushed into the fine lines of time and landed in another space. At the place where the golden light disappeared, A fragment and a crystal that looked like a cloud flew through the fine lines of time and landed in the gap of the 10,000 extinguishing celestial dipper. The moment the fragment fell into the 10,000 extinguishing heavenly dipper, the golden light disappeared. The timelines instantly disappeared. At the same time, the still world moved again. The space that was moving slowly in Xiao Hua's eyes appeared again. However, this slowness only lasted for a few breaths of time. The entire space shook rapidly. Then, Xiao Hua's half of the illusory dots that had yet to merge into the void also trembled. All the small dots that had disappeared before appeared again. Xiao Hua's entire body flashed like a wave of water, completely revealing himself in the air once again. Just like before, bean-sized beads of sweat suddenly appeared on Xiao Hua's forehead. However, Xiao Hua didn't have the time to wipe the sweat away. With a sweep of his mind, he immediately stored the 10,000 extinguishing heavenly dipper and the cloud-like crystal into his space. Then he let out a long breath. He sat down cross-legged, his palms facing the sky, and began to meditate. Along with the activation of his cultivation method, thin threads of lightning appeared around Xiao Hua's body. These threads of lightning transformed into millions of vortexes. At the same time, Xiao Hua's starry sky-scattered nascent soul also flew out from his lower dantian. His entire body was surrounded by primordial purple qi. The brilliance of the stars and the moon that filled the sky was like a waterfall. It rushed out of nowhere and crazily landed on the scattered nascent soul and his body. As Xiao Hua's pressure slowly spread out, it made up for the deficiencies caused by the activation of the clear feather pill's medicinal power. The starry sky-scattered nascent soul also gradually expanded. In the end, it was as if it was going to cover the entire starry sky. After an unknown amount of time, the surrounding void began to give birth to a faint will of heaven and earth. This will quickly filled the entire space and fell on Xiao Hua's body like the water of the four seas. Xiao Hua's figure moved slightly, and the starlight that filled the sky disappeared. It seemed that the incomparably huge starry sky-scattered nascent soul also quickly shrank and fell on top of Xiao Hua's head. When Xiao Hua opened his eyes, he saw a river of stars flashing between his eyes. At the same time, lightning also appeared. Xiao Hua looked up with some surprise, as if he didn't understand the origin of this will of heaven and earth. Then he closed his eyes again and checked his cultivation base. After a while, he opened his eyes and thought to himself, Senior Su's words are indeed true. This clear feather pill is worthy of being a medicinal pill of the immortal world. My cultivation base has already reached the late Mahayana realm, and my starry sky nascent soul has also reached the end of the ninth tribulation. Moreover, this clear feather pill's residual medicinal power has not been completely refined. After refining it, this Xiao can cross the tribulation at any time. The clear feather pill is so powerful, presumably other things also have similar effects. Thinking about this, Xiao Hua took out a few more jade boxes and carefully examined them. Inside these jade boxes, there were 3 colored clouds, 9 colored hills, flashing crystal dragons, strange colored bone flowers, and even a multicolored butterfly. Xiao Hua looked at them with a smile. His mind entered the space and called out Daoist Witch, Celestial Being, Demon Sovereign Sure, and the others. Without waiting for Xiao Hua to speak, Daoist Witch and the others cupped their hands and smiled. Congratulations, fellow Daoist, for reaching the peak of the 9th grade of Essence Force. Chapter 45-58. Xiao Hua shook his head with a smile and said, What is there to be happy about? If not for the fragment of the myriad extinguishing heavenly dipper, I would not have taken the clear feather pill now. Daoist Wu nodded and said, You are right. Fellow Daoist, you are now at the late stage of Mahayana realm, and still have the medicinal strength of the clear feather pill in your body. Perhaps you will ascend to the immortal realm after leaving Star Moon Palace. But we have yet to return to Dawn Rain Continent, and there are still many things we need to do. How can we leave now? Reverend Yun looked at Xiao Hua and said with a smile, Fellow Daoist, you are overthinking. Do you think ascending to the immortal realm is an easy thing? Among 10,000 cultivators who have cultivated to the peak of the 9th tier of Yuan energy, it is impossible for one to ascend to the immortal realm. Furthermore, the closer one is to the end, the more difficult it is to cultivate. Although fellow Daoist has already reached the late stage of tribulation transcendence, it will take at least 1,000 years for you to reach the consummation stage. Sherfiend quickly said, That's right, that's right. Big brother, it's the same as when you used the lightning escape technique. The first 70% of your physical body can merge with the void, but the later 30% is much slower. If you want to merge the last 5% into the void, who knows how long you'll have to wait. Xiaohua looked at his clones and said with a smile, Let's not talk about it anymore. In any case, I have made great progress in my overall strength, so we should not neglect it anymore. Then, he pointed at the jade box hovering in the air and said with a smile, This is a treasure I obtained together with the clear feather pill. If nothing goes wrong, it should be able to help you in your cultivation. Fellow Daoists, please take a look at it as it is what you need. Reverend Yun gave it a look, then grabbed it with his dragon claw. It was the glittering crystal dragon, and he said, You don't have to look at it anymore. It must be I. The celestial frowned and looked at this and that. Finally, he grabbed the small 9-colored mountain with his big hand. He squinted his eyes and looked at it for a moment, then nodded and said, This is it. Although I don't know what it is, the aura in it is very familiar. I think after refining it, my overall strength will catch up with fellow Daoist. Daoist which smiled faintly. Without any hesitation, he extended his arm and took the strange-colored bone flower in his hand. Like Reverend Yun, there's no need for me to look at it any longer. This thing is definitely mine. It's just that I don't know how helpful it will be to Ai's cultivation after refining it. Big brother, Demon Venerable sure was a little envious. He looked at the jade boxes on the left and said with a flattering face, This 3-colored cloud has the aura of noble spirit. It must belong to Wenchu. That starfish has the aura of the power of the moon and stars. It should belong to Feng Wu. As for the bamboo that condenses the long river and the colorful butterfly, I don't know who would use them. However, little brother knows that all of this is useless for little brother's cultivation. I wonder if big brother has anything that I need? What else do you want? The celestial put away the 9-colored mountain and shouted, You should refine that demonic array's demonic spirit properly. It's stronger than anything else. Sif. Demon Venerable sure smiled and said, Little brother knows that I'm being greedy. However, since all of you have gained something, you should let little brother be happy, right? Ah. Xiaohua laughed. He waved his hand and took out another jade box. Don't worry. This palace's star array is very magical. There are all kinds of treasures from Buddhism, Daoist, Confucian, and Demon. How can there be no demonic array? This is for you. Demon Lord Sure received the jade box and opened it to take a look. Inside, there was a blood-red skull that looked like a crystal-clear crystal. Demon Lord Shirbujue laughed and quickly kept the jade box. He bowed and said, Thank you, big brother. Little brother will devour this thing. I think I can take the last step. Damn it. The celestial rolled his eyes and said, Why do you want to take the last step? Could it be that you want to ascend to the immortal realm too? Hee hee. Demon Venerable sure laughed and said, Big brother, you don't know. Little brother can also ascend. However, little brother is going to the upper realm devil swamp in the devil realm. Good boy, you can also ascend. The celestial was envious and said, If all of you ascend, where will I go? Don't worry, fellow Daoist. Daoist which smiled and said, When we take the last step, we will naturally know. Moreover, at the very least, we still have Shenhua continent. When the celestial heard that, he raised his hand and took out the 9-colored mountain and said, Fellow Daoist, you are right. Then I want to see where I will take the last step. With that, the celestial opened his mouth and was about to swallow the 9-colored mountain. When Xiaohua saw that, he hurriedly raised his hand and blocked the mountain. He smiled bitterly and said, Fellow Daoist, don't worry. This is not a good place to refine treasures. If not for the fragment of the great extinguishing heavenly dipper, I wouldn't have taken the clear feather pill here. It's not too late to refine it after we leave the Star Moon Palace and find a place to cultivate. That works too. When the Celestial heard that, he kept the 9-colored mountain and said, "That's right, the cloud-like crystal chip with the fragment of the Great Extinguishing Heavenly Dipper seems to be the secret technique to refine the Great Extinguishing Heavenly Dipper. I want to study it." "Very good." Xiao Hua smiled and handed the crystal chip to the Celestial. "I'll leave it to you to study it." When the Celestial kept the crystal chip, Xiao Hua said, "Fellow Daoists, you don't have to go back first. When I was passing through the platform earlier, I heard strange thunder. There seemed to be some strange words in the thunder. The sound contained the power of laws, and ordinary cultivators couldn't withstand it. However, when I heard it, it also sounded in my heart. I seemed to be able to understand it. Now that we have nothing to do, instead of waiting for the Star Moon Palace to close, why don't we listen to it and see what mysteries there are inside?" "Very good." The Celestial smiled and said, "As the saying goes, unity of will is an impregnable fortress. We will also help you to study it." "Unity of will is an impregnable fortress?" Daoist sorcerer smiled and asked, "This phrase doesn't seem to be appropriate here." "Huh, who cares if it's appropriate or not? I'll go listen to it first." Xiaohua laughed. His figure flashed and landed at the place where he came from earlier. The Celestial and the others followed behind him. After exiting the palace door condensed from silver light, they saw the greenish-white platform again. It was also as dark and cold as usual, as if everything that happened in the pavilion had nothing to do with the outside world. Even if a crack was torn in the immortal world, and the 2 exiled immortals had returned to the immortal world, they couldn't raise a trace of light in this darkness. Xiao Hua and the others stood in front of the pavilion and looked around. There were also some light silhouettes in the shadows in the distance, but they couldn't see what they looked like clearly. A kind of heaviness and mystery came from afar. Xiao Hua and the others passed by the light silhouettes and flew towards the platform. They knew clearly that the light silhouettes weren't something they could approach casually. After flying to the platform, Xiao Hua and the others landed and waited quietly. Sure enough, in the time it took to brew a cup of tea, thunder rumbled from high up in the sky. Xiao Hua hurriedly looked at the Celestial, Daoist sorcerer, and the others. It wasn't out of Xiao Hua's expectations. Their bodies shone with golden, blood-red, or gray-white light. However, their bodies were the same as Xiao Hua's, showing no signs of exploding. Xiao Hua breathed a sigh of relief and listened with rapt attention. That voice appeared in Xiao Hua's heart again. However, this time was different from the previous times. The voice was abnormally blurry, and he couldn't hear what it was saying at all. Fellow Daoist." Just as Xiao Hua frowned, the Celestial's body trembled and he cried out in alarm, This seems to be a cultivation method. It's really suitable for this poor Daoist to cultivate." Xiao Hua's body also shook. He looked at the Celestial in disbelief and listened with rapt attention again. Unfortunately, no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't hear it clearly. He looked at the Celestial again and frowned as well. He couldn't help but walk toward the other direction of the platform. "Fellow Daoist," Xiao Hua reminded him, "that place is not somewhere you and I can go." Without waiting for Xiao Hua to finish speaking, the Celestial raised his hand, indicating for Xiao Hua to shut up. His figure stopped, turned around, and took a few steps forward. In the end, he stopped again and said to Xiao Hua, "Fellow Daoist, this poor Daoist can confirm that this voice is talking about a kind of cultivation method that this poor Daoist can cultivate. But I can't hear it clearly from here. You can only hear it when you go there." As he said that, the Celestial pointed at the outline of a light shadow outside the platform. "How is that possible?" Xiao Hua was puzzled. The thunder can only be heard on the platform, but it can't be heard after the platform. How can that light shadow be heard? "Why don't we go there and have a look?" Reverend Yun said with a smile. "If fellow Daoist feels unsafe, we won't leave the platform." "Alright." Xiao Hua nodded helplessly. He understood the Celestial's feelings very well. After all, it was rare for him to come across a cultivation method he could cultivate. If it were him, he wouldn't want to give it up so easily. What he was worried about was that the celestial might not be able to hear it clearly when they reached the edge of the platform. Sure enough, when they landed on the edge of the platform, not only did the thunder not become louder, it became softer and finally disappeared. Damn it. Celestial Bujue roared to the sky. Are you kidding me? As soon as the celestial's voice died away, another thunder rumbled. However, this time, it was not the thunder that fell, but the same inexplicable sound. The voice rang in Xiaohua's mind. Xiaohua shuddered and stood there in a daze. Although the voice was vague, he could hear it clearly. The discussion about the cultivation method is about to begin. All divine sons are in position. The discussion about the cultivation method? Divine sons? Xiaohua came to his senses and hurriedly turned to look at the celestial, Daoist sorcerer, and Reverend Yun. Obviously, they had heard it too, and their faces were filled with disbelief. After all, the Xingyue palace mentioned by Fairy Xingyu was an ancient divine object. How could there be an ancient deity in it? But if these voices were just illusions and were just one of the restrictive spells in the Xingyue palace, what was the use of these voices? You're tuning in to the Wang Lin's Journey YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.